You're listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is December 21st, 2023, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I am joined today, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing on this fine Thursday?
Spencer, hello. I'm doing very well. Happy Thursday to you. This is 2 weeks in a row on the same day.
I know.
And a little bit earlier in the day, so... I don't know if that's good or bad for my brain function. It might be, this is one of the earlier times we would be recording. So Who knows?
It's true.
I get like a good 45-minute window in the mid-afternoon, and that's about all that it works for. So we'll see. But we got a lot of WoW to talk about this week. We got a lot of news, a big look ahead to 24 we got from official sources this week. There's a ton of stuff to do in many different versions of the game. So
is there ever? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm playing so much WoW, maybe too much, honestly, like maybe a little bit too much, that I need to start being realistic about like, okay, I need to dial this back just a touch because I'm getting some of this out of my system, and I don't want to strain any relationships or responsibilities. I haven't yet, but it's one of those situations where it's
getting
like,
bad enough that it's on your mind.
If you just, let's say I could pick up an extra night of Keystones here and a BFD here and there, and then all of a sudden you start running out of other time to do other stuff in your life, and you start missing out on your sleep schedule. And I don't want to do that. I think. Yeah. It's one thing when stuff is brand new and super exciting, you want to dive into it, but it's good to like work that stuff out over a couple weeks and then be realistic with yourself. So that's, I don't know. I've just been putting a ton of time into Dragonflight and SOD. So super fun. I mean, I think there's so much to play right now. There's something for everybody. If you're interested in anything World of Warcraft, there's something that's going to be appealing to you right now, I feel like.
It's shocking how much there is to do in World of Warcraft. As you said, I've still, my primary form of the game at the moment is still Season of Discovery, just because I'm raiding with Sloot and Josh and good buddies. Like, we're just, I don't know. It's something where one night a week for 40 minutes to an hour, you can do a BFD. Actually 2 nights a week. You can do a BFD. This week we did one yesterday. We'll do one tonight because the reset's on Wednesday evening or Thursday morning. I don't know. It's just a good time to spend time with people. I'm leveling a mage now in it, so I have a mage healer that I want to try out. So I don't know. See, SOD still is like my main version of WoW for the moment. Although like it doesn't mean I'm neglecting the actual WoW. There's still a lot to do in that, and I'm having a lot of fun with that. So I don't know, it's pretty bizarre to have such a vast options to choose from. And of course, Winterveil kicked off this week, both in the live version and in the classic version, and in the hardcore classic version, and in the Season of Discovery version. So there's lots to do, including new quests that were green quests added to Season of Discovery. So if you're going around the Ironforge area, or if you're picking up those quests, you can essentially talk to these people, and you'll see that there's a green question mark for all these quests for Season of Discovery, which I thought was an interesting choice for something that you can do. And there's some neat rewards too, and especially in Season of Discovery, getting that plus 20 spirit buff from Winterveil from the mistletoe. That is a huge thing for a lot of people. So 20 spirit is insane. It's like more than 3 pieces of gear worth of spirit, since most pieces of gear have 6 on it right now. So you will definitely notice an improvement if you're leveling, or if you're out there doing any kind of raid or dungeon content. It is a big help. So be sure you're taking advantage of how to get mistletoe. In general, to get mistletoe, you'll need to find a winter reveler in one of the major cities or inns. And when you find the winter reveler underneath some mistletoe, you do a /kiss emote, and after you do that, they'll give you 5 pieces of mistletoe that you can use to buff your allies. So have your buddies, everyone goes and has apparently a kissing fest, and then gets all their mistletoe, and then can buff everyone else. So take advantage when you can of that particular aspect. Yeah, man, it's a busy time though. I'm definitely enjoying it. But what'd you get this past week?
Oh man, a lot. I mean, the last time we spoke was last Thursday, so I was like halfway through, 2/3 of the way through last week's raid week. We finished the week at Mythic 2 of 9, so we got in there on Sunday. Sunday last week. I guess we just went straight into Mythic because Farak was dead on Wednesday. I mean, Gnarlroot, pretty straightforward for, the intro boss as you would expect. It's maybe a little bit harder than some of the other ones that we've seen. It wasn't like just kind of a keel over one shot looking at it the first time. And even this week, it took a couple pulls. We rotated a few people through. So, it was some people's first time seeing it, but it doesn't ask a lot more of you than the heroic version of the fight does. So that's cool. Agira is certainly more complicated and more punishing, but it's not like a super hard check. You have a lot of time to just pump damage into her as long as you can execute the spears dance. And, there's some tools. There's like a weak aura that helps out with that a lot. So that was really great. We got everybody a mythic raid choice out of their vault for this week and everything. And it was a good learning experience. This week was a bit frustrating for raid, and raid is done for the week because our third raid night is Sunday. Sunday is Christmas Eve. We will not be raiding on Christmas Eve. As much fun as WoW is right now, that's just not happening. So Tuesday we had a full group, 30 players, which is fun to play with 30 players until you get to Smolderon, and then everything sucks for a while. We killed Smolderon with 7 people alive out of the 30. It's just, okay, enough people need to live long enough that the health is low enough that if we can survive into that last burn phase with a few DPS alive, that we could put it down before we die. And that sucks. I mean, part of it is execution, certainly, and there are people who aren't executing the strat well enough or not understanding well enough what they're supposed to be doing to survive the process. But also, the fight is so much easier with a smaller group. Tindral was similarly extremely difficult for us this week for some reason. I was missing some of my, heavy hitters, a couple of them, but not enough to make that big of a difference where it was like we didn't get to Farak on Tuesday, and we had parked an alt. One of my alts was parked at normal Farak, so we could start with normal Farak and then just clear through heroic. Whereas before we were doing the unlock, we have to do 5 bosses. So it's like 45 minutes or half an hour you're spending on normal. So we cut all that out, and we still ended up at we ended up 1 boss ahead of where we were before. So kind of a disappointing start to the week with that. And then Heroic Farak Reclear was actually great. It was a one-shot. It was pretty clean. I don't think anybody even died. So execution of that was really good. And it's a fight that gets honestly a lot easier as you kind of gear up and people understand the timings on stuff, because you have almost a minute-long window at the end of phase 2 where nothing is really happening, and you can just chunk the boss down and get ready for phase 3, which really it saves your bacon quite a bit if you can maximize that, because it's less time you have to spend in the kill or be killed phase. So that was awesome. I didn't think we were going to kill Heroic Farak that fast last night, and we had some people in there who it was AOTC for them, so that was cool. But then we chopped it. We only had 22 or something last night, so I only had to get a couple people to sit, and we had some cross-realm people, so obviously they can't join us right now. It still works that way until patch, probably. We killed Mythic Gnarlroot pretty quickly, but then we just couldn't kill Agira with the group that we had. Just the execution wasn't good enough. Throughput wasn't where it needed to be. We had multiple 5% wipes, but just, and that's the kind of fight where you can't get over the finish line if you don't have enough people alive at the end. It was really frustrating. So, just kind of is what it is. But yeah, we're done for the rest of this week, and next week's also going to be a short week. So we'll see. But I got the chest from Heroic Farak, which is super heavily haste-statted. It's a great piece of gear. So I'm just ticking stuff off the list everywhere. I got Myth Track Shoulders out of the vault this week. Not set and no catalyst charge, but still, I'm getting there. And Agira drops the Mythic Track hand, so I should have 4-piece Mythic Track set before too much longer.
Very good.
Yeah. Gear's really pretty much rounded out. I mean, I crafted boots this week at 483. It feels really nice. I've already done 10 keys this week. I've done 8 keys this week. I did 10 keys last week. I'm just hanging out in the 20 to 22 range. Last week I finished at 2775 rating. This week I got up to 2790. So I'm not like really pushing rating, but just kind of tacking on 21s in time or whatever. I'm capped on aspect crest. I capped last week and I capped again this week. It's the first time ever since they put in the crest in season 2 that I've capped for any week. So I'm doing a lot more dungeons this season than I did last season. I've already done almost as many plus 20s in time as I did all of season 2, and we're 6 weeks in versus however long season 2 was. So just we got a great crew of people rotating through and doing keys. It feels really fun. This season feels great. I think the dungeon pool is really good. It's fun to do. There's not too many dungeons that I've really grown about having to step into. And overall, I think the tuning feels good. The affixes, they make the dungeon harder. They're supposed to, but they just don't feel as punishing as they have in the past. I don't know if they tweak stuff with frequency for the stuff on different intervals or whatever, but I mean, this is the highest rating I've had in Dragonflight in any season already, and we're still climbing. I don't know, just having a great time in Keystone Dungeons. And in SOD, Friday I hopped into a BFD for the first time. Somebody from Death Jesters over there was, just putting a run together, and I was like, I'll go. What the hell? So we hopped in there. It was like a half guild group and half pugs, but the person leading the raid, no voice comms, but just awesome, concise chat instructions, and we just blasted through there.
It's a wonderful thing that the design of that particular raid, that you can essentially sum up what you need to do for a boss in a sentence. There's
pretty much
there's only 1 or 2 bosses in there where you need to say more than a sentence, and more than a sentence is 3 sentences. It's not there's a lot, you know. It's great.
Yeah, the most it gets is it's maybe there's 3 different things to pay attention to on a boss. I mean, it's level 25 rating, you know. So that was really fun. I had a blast in there. It took about maybe 2 hours. We had a couple wipes, but mostly on turtle boss, just because people weren't getting far enough away, and then half the raid would explode when the shield pops. So that didn't work out. But everything else, I think, was a one shot. I got a helm with defense rating on it. I got the set boots. From the quest, you get a reward that's a nice blue shield.
Yep.
I got 11 of my 12 runes now. I got Warbringer yesterday. I ended up just a buddy of mine, my returning buddy who got me into WoW years ago. He's been playing actually a lot. He's got a couple tunes going, and he pickpocketed all the Shredder salvage unit things and sent me a whole grip of them. He sent me 30 of them or something.
Wow.
And they're expensive. You can make them with engineering, but you have to drop from Sneed, and they take a lot of mats, and they're very expensive to buy on the AH. So he just hooked me up. I went out to Stone Talon and farmed them up, and then I just bought the rest of the stuff. The fish oil and the Dark Iron Dwarf drops weren't very expensive at this point, so it's this gold is less valuable than my time.
Right.
And Warbringer is super fun to play with, being able to charge in combat in vanilla WoW. Wow. And I got honored with Silverwing Sentinels, and I'm working on Revered because I've been doing Battle for Ashenvale.
Oh.
I got the mount, I got the trinket, I got the ring, I got the neck. And I'm working at Revered. There's a nice weapon if I don't get lucky with a BFD drop. Guild's supposed to be stepping into BFD tonight, so I'm going to get in there and give it another shot. Now I got some gear. I got a better spec setup for raid tanking. So, I don't know. SOD is super fun. I'm kind of out of stuff to do by myself in the outdoor world, so I think I'm just going to work on Battle for Ashenvale until Revered, and then, I don't know, run around and mine and try to make some coin and just hang out. And if people want to do dungeons or BFDs, then hop in there. But, man, it's so fun. It starts to get to a point where you start thinking about what all am I going to level, because you only got to get to 25.
Yep.
It's really not that big of an ask to get in there and start having fun with it. So
I'd say for your average
that might be on my list.
Yeah, for your average person, it's probably a 5 to 6 day commitment to level a character up, playing 3 to 4 hours a day kind of thing, maybe a week to get a character up, which isn't a lot for someone who's like, you know what, I got this weekend to play. I'm going to play over this weekend. It's 3 days. It's very weird how long it takes to do.
And especially if you have like some friends, or if you're doing an alt or whatever, it's like, okay, well now you have resources, you get dragged through some stuff or whatever. Like, yeah, it's fast, and then you can. I mean, the end game is really fun, I think. So you can get right into it.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's like for me, SOD. I guess I'll do some gear recap here because it makes sense for me to do, and then we'll move into what's going on this week. So don't worry, we're almost there, guys. I've finished the healing 3 set. Well, the caster 3 set for leather set in SOD. So I have all 3 pieces. I did craft my cloth boots, which I'm not currently using, although I will use at some point if there seems to be fights where I need to be able to drop threat or take reduced damage, because it doesn't affect healing; it only affects output damage. So those boots are nice. They're the epic shadow boots that you can actually craft once you get all the BFD secrets going. This week last night we saw both the epic staff and the epic crossbow drop, which were huge. So one of our warlocks got the staff, and Josh actually on his hunter got the crossbow. So he then had to go and this is something that's very classic, level up his skill up his crossbows. Because
that epic crossbow was just missing with it all night.
Exactly. So he had to go out and kill a bunch of boars to learn how to do that. So he spent, I think, a couple hours last night just killing boars and actually leveling the thing up. Or skilling the thing up. So that was funny. And we're like pretty smooth as a run. I mean, we did have one flub last night, as you mentioned, on the turtle boss, where the boss just got moved and then people didn't adjust, and then the turtle's shield exploded and killed 3 people, and you're like, okay, that's gonna happen. But in general, yeah, I dig this particular type of raiding because I feel like everything's very fluid, in the sense of like on my we 2 heal it. A priest can 1 heal the place if they're very good at what they're doing or geared and understand where the damage is going to be happening. And if their team's obviously also playing well, because there is a certain amount of like, hey, if you're doing enough damage, then a lot of these mechanics aren't really as much of a factor. Because you push the bosses fast enough or kill them fast enough. So our priest healer is sort of like our main healer. Doesn't do any damage casting at all, just focused on healing. I am our druid healer, and I do like as much I do more damage than 1 or 2 of our DPS on most fights. And typically they're less geared than I am, so it's just a gear factor that's coming in there. But with the Wrath rune that's there, and with Star Surge as a rune that's there, just weaving those in is a lot of fun to be like, yeah, I'll just weave these in, and a group took damage. Here's a wild growth on that group. That group's topped off again. And it's all instant, right? So I do feel like there's always something for me to do casting wise. I also feel like I'm not recklessly spending my mana so I can't heal anyone, which is also very nice. And it's just fun. It's just a good time. So I enjoy it.
It's super flexible, and I feel like that's the genius of the runes in the level 25 endgame, and it's sort of like what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that phase 1 lasts a little bit. Like I know we're gonna phase out in the winter time, but I'm hoping that means like February, March.
Yeah,
not
that's
like
my guess. My
January,
guess is February. My guess is February.
Because I mean, the great thing is, like, your runes are very powerful in determining like your proficiency in combat. And so you can easily switch between roles without having to do a full respec or whatever. You can kind of spec one way, but then set your runes up. And it's like, well, I can off tank, or I can off heal, or I could DPS instead, or whatever. And, you know, the group can just go. You can fill the group out and go do stuff. It goes for dungeons too. Like, it's really, I'm really impressed by the way that system works and the impact it has in the gameplay. Especially, I don't know, the low level endgame is so fun. You know, everybody has very limited access to stuff. You don't have a lot of spells, and you don't have a lot of talent points and everything. So it keeps stuff streamlined and very flexible.
Yeah, I'm very pleased with how it feels, and I am also glad that we're going to sit in this phase a little bit longer. I know there's a lot of people out there who are like 6 weeks and then the next thing, and then 6 weeks and the next thing. Let's just make this really fast. And I was like, I don't think they're going to do it. I think there's so much here to explore and enjoy. I think there's so many opportunities for leveling alts and doing things like that I think it's going to be 2 months was my guess. It's going to be a little longer than 2 months, which is fine. As long as we, get it, I think, as you said, sometime in February, I think we're on a good track and people have a lot of fun with it. And then they'll be able to move into the next thing and level up the characters that they have and get new runes and do new endgame with Nomergon's going to be the next raid. So a lot of people haven't thought of that. But we've chatted about this enough. We're 20 minutes into the show, so let's kick off with what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, well, this week is a Time Walking week, which means we have 2 weekly events going on. We have the Burning Crusade Time Walking event, where the Sign of the Twisting Nether buff is up, increasing bonus Burning Crusade reputation gains from combat and quests by 50%, as well as level 60 characters and above can do Blood Furnace, Botanica, Magister's Terrace, Mana Tombs, Shattered Halls, and Underbog to get themselves some 428 gear, which is on the Adventurer track. There's also the Vendor who's selling 411 gear, if that's something you want to pick up. And if you complete 5 of these, you get yourself a cache of normal Amir Drasil gear. So if that's something you're looking for, that is definitely an option for gearing up a character and having a good time, or leveling a character, because the experience is really nice and good. So definitely keep that in mind. Black Temple is the Time Walking raid. So if you're someone who wants to participate in the 10 to 30 player raid that's dropping 454 upgradable eye-level gear for max-level characters, or potentially if you're someone who has the Warglaze of Azeroth already and want to unlock the Transmog, you need to get in there and kill Illidan on your Demon Hunter. So yeah, this is a great way to gear up your character and spice things up a bit if you're someone who's like, hey, we've done normal, Mir Drasil, we're not really looking to dip our toes into heroic, or we're doing heroic, but we want something to do on an extra night when people are on vacation because it's the holidays or whatever it is. Black Temple's a good thing to pick. Get in there and just spend some time killing some of the older bosses that are a little bit less complicated mechanically, and get yourself some 454 gear, which is certainly a nice high level to be picking stuff up at. Even if you're pugging into this, it could still be a really good time. So certainly worth checking out.
Yeah, it's fun runs, quick. You can pick up the event quest every time the Time Walking raid comes around, which is awesome. It is a little bit early in the Amir Drasil cycle for this a lot of teams probably, but I mean, it's out there. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you might have a night where people want to play, but because of holiday stuff, the full team isn't around. So it's a good option for something like that. But yeah, great week for dungeons too. If you want to just tear through these, or quick runs are pretty straightforward, and the rewards are decent. Like, they're better than they have been because of the upgrade track stuff and the drops and whatever. So a couple patches ago, it was like there's just no reason to do this for gear at all. Like 428 upgradable is not great, but at least it's something. At least it has like a ceiling, Yeah. So, and if you're still hunting for something out of normal Amir Drasil, it's could be worth it just for that. These are going to be quick. These dungeons take like 8-10 minutes a piece. Like, it's not a big time investment. They're not very complicated. They're very old dungeons, so they go pretty quick.
Yeah. The other weekly event we got going on right now is the Pet Battle bonus event. So if you're someone who just got your little holiday moose, or another pet that you have, or maybe you're taking advantage of the Blizzard store sales that they have going on right now for all the pets and mounts and things that are happening, good way to level them up. You got Pet Battle experience gained by 100%. So you can actually level them quite quickly, as well as if you actually are into PvP pet battles and you win 5 of them, you can get yourself a Pet Battle Training Stone, which instantly trains a pet to level 25, which is max level for those pets. Season of Discovery is max level 25. This is interesting. I wonder if there's some sort of relationship here. Anyways.
When Season Discovery ends, you can make your tune a battle pet for your retail character. Yeah.
There we go. No, it's not a thing, guys. But anyways, that would be bizarre. We have a checklist for folks to go through for the things to do this week. Obviously, you want to get your Aiding the Accord, picking up Super Bloom as the option, so you can get out there and actually do your Super Bloom for the week, get yourself some nice rewards from that. The PvP quests are random battlegrounds and rated arenas, so pick those up if you're going to be participating in those sorts of events. The Brawl this week is Deepwind Dunk, which is Deepwind Gorge with Dunk Ball. Basically, you claim balls from the map center and run them to the northern or southern mines to sort of like dunk them on your base, on your enemy's base. So that's the concept of center court is center of the map, and you go north and south to each person's net, and you're scoring on their net. I think it's actually a great concept for a brawl. So it's a good one. It's better than the original Deepwind Dunk. I think we all agree on.
Yeah, I like the rules way better. It's pretty fun. It's this is one of the brawls that really mixes up the rules on an existing BG instead of just adding some gimmick to familiar gameplay. So this is one of the ones I like a bit better. Definitely worth a look if you are a BG's player who wants something different in your diet this week. Deepwind Dunk's pretty fun in my opinion.
Yeah. Orostar the Hibernator is the big rune bear in Emerald Dream. If you haven't knocked Orostar out for the week, be sure you get out there and get yourself some 441 loot, as well as a chance at all the other fun things you can get out there, including the Bark Bear appearance. That fun bear appearance, the rune bear appearance, is something you can get from knocking out the world boss. So be sure you're doing that on your druid. Mythic plus affixes for the week are Tyrannical, Incorporeal, and Spiteful, meaning that we have bosses with more health and deal increased damage, While in combat, incorporeal beings periodically appear and attempt to weaken players, and fiends rise from the corpses of non-boss enemies and pursue random players. This is like Halloween affixes. You have ghosts appearing everywhere from everything throughout your run. This is ugly. This is an ugly tyrannical week. You have to deal with incorporeal during tyrannical bosses, which is an added mechanic for you to pay attention to. And if you fail the check of dealing with incorporeal, that boss just became substantially harder, and it's very likely someone could die. So that's unfortunate. You then have Spiteful, which just makes trash, which is like, would you like more trash with your trash this week? You basically just have, anytime you kill a trash mob, you have a spirit rise from it, and it's going to fixate on a player and chase them, which means that you are stuck in combat longer. If you're inside a tight space like Waycrest Manor, you actually have to deal with these Spitefuls, because unless you can really AoE root them with like a Frost Nova or, AoE roots, there's no way to sort of like shut them down. And even if you do, you have to walk past them, and they'll often melee people who walk past them. So that then puts them inside a situation where, hey, you know what? You could just die, because these things do a ton of damage when they do actually hit you. So I would say this is a pretty ugly week. This is not a week Jason's already done 10 keys, so he's going to have an opinion on this as well. But I think in general, comparatively to other weeks, this isn't the best tyrannical week you're going to see.
I agree with you in theory and not in practice. Because when I saw this, I went, well, this week's going to suck. I guess I'm going to take a bit of a lighter Keystone week because I don't want to do this. And then we got in there, and it really wasn't that bad. Now, granted, I'm playing with
that's done all 20s.
Pre-made group. This is probably not a fun week to pug, because Incorp is comp dependent extremely, right? Not everybody can deal with Incorp in a elegant way, right? So that's a thing to be aware of. And if you don't know what your tank is doing or capable of, you might have a big spiteful problem as well. Pugging is much more of a crapshoot this week than other weeks. Especially the last 3 or 4 weeks have been so friendly in terms of the combos. This one is definitely less friendly in those terms than we've seen of late. But overall, I think it's actually okay. I think the timers this season are pretty favorable. They're not the timers are not real punishing. I'm finding that we're having plenty of time, even with a boss wipe or something. We can still time a key sometimes, depending on the dungeon, which is cool. It does get a little hairy out there this week. If you're doing Everbloom, I did a couple Everblooms last night. And there are big pulls in Everbloom, and the Lashers are all on death eligible. So you might be fighting 8 or 12 mobs, and then they all pop ghosts, and then you got 2 Incorps out while you're running around with whatever's left of your 12 mobs and their 12 ghosts. And it's it definitely requires some coordination. It requires some forethought, right? You got to have your build and your comp set up. The first dungeon we did, I had an evoker and a druid, and we started going. They're like, "Oh, I forgot to take my CC talent," and then we had to kind of struggle with Incorps for that whole run. But then after that, everybody changed specs around, and then we were fine. But yeah, I don't know. I will say, I did 22 rise 22 fall. And the bosses felt pretty hard once you start, ascending the 20s a little bit on Tyrannical. It's just a lot of health. You got to execute the mechanics extremely correctly for a very long amount of time. Second boss in fall, the Hourglass Sand Elemental thing, that was pretty punishing as we started to get, up into the 20s. So I guess that's always a caveat with Tyrannical, is that you're going to run into that point where the boss might just be too hard for your group if the keystone is going up too much, right? But overall, tough week for pugs for sure. And if you have something that counteracts Incorp, volunteer, just do it. Be the hero for your group, especially if you're playing with unknown quantities, right? If you're pugging and you have a way to shut down an Incorp, then you should take it. And if you have a way to shut down 2 Incorps, then you should take it, because if you can prevent your group from being harassed by the Incorps, then if your meters aren't as good as you want them to be, then guess what? You lived and you killed the boss and you got the dungeon done and you got your rewards and whatever, right? Isn't that better than, pumping the meters, but you're pumping damage into stuff that is now going to be alive way longer because you got the huge haste debuff from the Incorpse, and now your healer's dead, and now who knows what happens to the overall success of the run. I mean, and now if you have pre-mades or whatever, just make sure everybody's on the same page before you step in. Like, okay, it is Incorp. We do need CC options. Do we have, at least 2 hard CC options for Incorps? Who's going to do what? Just figure it out. And if you're plugging in, if you can, I can't. I would if I could. I would love to be able to push a button and shut off an Incorp, but my class doesn't do that. If you can, you should take the initiative and, just volunteer for that job and help your group live through all this. Incorp is one of the affixes that does happen during boss fights, which sucks on Tyrannical Week quite a bit. So, yeah, I don't know. I think on paper, this is probably one of the worst weeks we get, to be honest, but I haven't felt it in the tuning between the overall like mob and boss tuning and the timers. The timer tuning, I think, is pretty generous this season. So you can do it. You can get out there and succeed this week, but you gotta put some thought into it before you put the keystone in the font.
Yeah, you definitely have to have a group that's going to be able to handle this week to make it feel smooth. So I'm glad you did with the keystones you were doing. Winterveil is live, and there's some new things with 2023. Not only did we have a couple of new items for you to pick up, they also updated the decorations, which I think is probably one of the cooler things that you can do with Winterveil. They said some of the Winterveil decorations have been showing their age over the years, so as part of the holiday touch-ups, we have mistletoe, cozy fireplaces, and most notably, ornaments themed after the Lost Vikings and an orc nutcracker. That are decorations that were all sort of put together as assets that went into the game. So pretty cool to have those sort of, bringing the space into a more modern era for folks. New item-wise for people, if they were looking to get something new, we have a new Pepe toy called the Festive Transdimensional Bird Whistle, which calls in a sleigh for your Pepe to sort of, hang out in and chill with you in. And then we also have this like mount armor for your drakes that puts on a sleigh and so a red nose and basically just literally makes a reindeer with reindeer antlers out of your dragon, if that's something you're wanting to do. So yeah, it's the Highland Drake Winterveil saddle. So if that's something you're looking to get to, you can pick up some of the new stuff as far as that goes. Old stuff in Winterveil, it is packed. There is a ton of things for you to actually look at and get. One of the things I want to highlight that we don't talk about and haven't talked about in a long while are the weapon illusions. You can get the Flames of Ragnaros weapon illusion as something that's a very cool weapon illusion for your weapon. You can also get Winter's Grasp, which is the other one. Those both come from the stolen presents that you get from doing the whole killing the Grinch thing, if that's something you're wanting to get. So certainly get up there and kill the Grinch regularly to try and get yourself some weapon illusions if you haven't picked those up yet, because they do look really cool. We did mention last week the Minion of Grumpus, the mount that you can get. That's back in Warlords of Draenor. If you head out there, you can get yourself the Grumpus from killing the Grumpus out there, and ride around on a mount. If you haven't picked that up yet, obviously we still have the Globe Yeti and the Tiny Snowman and the Winter Reindeer for you to pick up. It is a loaded holiday with stuff for you to get. There's now also a Santa hat for Pepe. If you're someone who's like, collects all the little things for Pepe, you can get a Santa hat as another one of the ways to decorate. It's a loaded holiday. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've already highlighted the things that are taking place over in Season of Discovery about like getting out there and getting yourself mistletoe and doing the quests that are green that are out there. I imagine there'll be presents to open for everyone in all versions of WoW when we hit the 25th. So, be on the lookout for that and grab those. I'm sure they typically come along with an achievement, which obviously in the classic games will not have achievements because they don't exist. But when you're talking about the modern game, you'll want to get your achievements for that and pick up whatever new toy or gift that they have for us. So, man, oh man, it is a packed holiday, and I'm glad that they're doing it. I don't know if I'd ever use this Highland Drake armor, to be honest, man. I don't think I would. It's just not my thing.
It's over the top. I want to collect it. I haven't gotten it yet. I did get the Pepe toy the other day from Metzen, and the Metzen the Reindeer quest is a pain. Like this is not queuing to the holiday boss, right?
Right.
You have to go to the place. You have to go pick up the quest and then go to the place, and then you have to kill the Grinch.
Which is made worse because you can't dragon ride there. And so you either take a flight path or you use old world flying, which just feels bad. Like it's a weird thing where, you can't go back, right? When Greg Street ages ago, was talking about introducing LFR to World of Warcraft, it's like there's no, like, you can't go back once we've done this. It's the same thing. Like you can't go back once you've introduced dragon riding and the speed of that and the fun of that. It's really hard to go to old world and be like, I feel very slow and static on my mount, and it just isn't fun. Yeah. The
toothpaste is well out of the tube on that. This will be the last time. This will be the last one. Yep. Last Winterveil, where that's an issue. Yeah, I get on a flight path and then usually get up for a second. But it's like, hey, I've been playing a lot of
Season Discovery.
So,
I was going to say,
whatever.
If you've been doing
I'm used to sitting on flight paths.
You're used to 20-minute flight paths where you're like, all right, let's go do some laundry. I'll be back.
Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, so I would like to get it, but yeah, it's for Highland Drake, and I have the pirate armor for Highland Drake that I spent like 10k gold on or 100k gold on or whatever it was, and like I love the pirate aesthetic, so I don't know. I mean, maybe during Winterveil, it's the move. If I get it, I would probably mess with it just because it's funny, but I want to collecting it is the bigger thing than using it. But I think it's one of those deals where your first one of the day, you have a greatly increased chance to get it. So I wouldn't recommend doing this over and over again if you're looking for the new stuff specifically. But the quest reward of the stolen present can contain any of these old pets and toys and cosmetics and things that were previous year Winterveil rewards, which is a cool way to do it. It's so that's grindy as some of the other holidays, but it's just all centered around Mets and the Reindeer. And but so if you have like alts and stuff and you want to, if you're missing a bunch, then you can get a bunch of stolen presents that way to catch up on old stuff, which is kind of cool. But don't be upset if you take 12 alts through and you don't get your mount armor the first time you try to do that, because you were probably only going to get it on your first kill of the day. But I mean, yeah, they usually add like 1 or 2 or 4 items to Winterveil every year through the presents, and then they all get into the pool for the stolen presents from the quest. So it's a bit of a different thing than other holidays where you have a vendor and you're grinding a currency, and then you dump all your holiday currency onto the vendor for the stuff. It's all just centered around this one quest. I mean, there is stuff in Draenor as well, and there's stuff in your garrison if you want to. You can decorate it, and there's some other stuff to do, but yeah, it's one of the bigger holidays. There's just a ton of stuff. I think I'm pretty well caught up. I don't think, other than the Drake armor, I don't think there's anything I really don't have. So I'll just be doing that on the daily until hopefully I luck out with that. But yeah, I got to say, the new decorations and everything look great. It's awesome having Valdrakken all decked out for Winterveil. And even inside of Mirdrasil, like the room where you fight Council Boss, that's all decorated, and they got their winter hats on, and the dungeon bosses have winter hats on and everything. I mean, that's one of my favorite things they always do for holidays. It makes it so much fun. It's just that little window of time every year. So yeah, it's going on. We got a couple. Well, I guess we got another week and a half on it yet, but hopefully if there's we know we're getting new presents. I'm not gonna peek into the data mining and tell you what they are, but there will be new presents for on Christmas Day that you could, from then and through the end of the event, you can go to Ironforge or Orgrimmar and open them up and get the new stuff for this year. So that's awesome. It's really cool, and I think the way it works, like if you have multiple characters and you're missing stuff, the way it works is actually great because you're just doing Metzen over and over again. You're not doing this whole suite of different quests and killing these particular things, and you got to go over here and find, like Hallow's End, for example, where you have stuff spread out everywhere, and then you're stacking up this currency to go buy something. The downside is it's like random what you get, but it tries to, like if you're missing stuff, it will reward it to you eventually. So there's no thought involved, right? You just go do it and you come back. Did you get a thing? Yes. Check it off the list. Okay. That's it.
Yeah. The other thing we got to talk about here is some hotfixes that came in, and they did go through Demon Hunters, Druids, Evokers, Mages, Monks, Paladins, Priests, Rogues, Shaman, and Warlocks, and do some tweaking. So if you're one of those classes and feel like you want to see whether or not you got buffed over this, if you got a little gift, this hotfix, or not. You can feel free to have a look, but there's just a couple of fixes that I wanted to highlight. One of them's for Feral Druids, where Heart of the Wild no longer unintentionally grants combo points to Feral Druids. I could just picture having a Resto Druid in the raid being told by their Feral Druid to just spam Heart of the Wild casts whenever they had downtime, because it was a higher DPS gain than the Resto Druid trying to do DPS, because you're just giving combo points to your Feral Druids.
Right.
Yeah, that's not supposed to be a thing. Guardian Druids, they fixed an issue causing Blazing Thorns to proc on targets which were not in combat with the player, so you just randomly would have other mobs come running into pulls. That's not also intentional. I'm glad that got fixed, because that is super spicy to be like, I'm just tanking through this Waycrest. Hey, wait, where's all this other stuff coming from? That's not what you want either, so I'm glad that got resolved. And then along the lines of Shadow Priest, they resolved an issue causing the Death's Torment buff from the Imir Dream's Hope 4-piece set bonus to be removed at the start of a dungeon encounter. You shouldn't lose your 4 set when you're about to pull a boss. That's just not a thing. So let's be sure that's fixed too. So yeah, I'm glad they went through and resolved those sorts of things. As far as the other classes go, like I said, have a look to see if you got yourself some buffs or some nerfs. There definitely were some that went out. I know mages got a lot of attention in all of the specs, and all of it looks to be damage increased. So congratulations, mages. It's a good Christmas for you, good Winterveil for you. Be sure you're taking advantage of that.
Big mage buffs, debatable by some if they were actually necessary or not.
Yeah.
But I mean, I like it when stuff dies faster. I don't really care who killed it. That's my perspective as the tank and raid leader. So yay, more damage.
How tank and raid leader of you. All right,
make the boss die so I get my loot.
Exactly.
Stop. I don't care about the meters. Shut your meters off and kill the boss.
Is inside of the raid itself, Amir Dream's Hope. They fixed an issue where Raid Finder, Fate of Amir that particular wing, could port you to the wrong location. Yeah, that's
whoops. That's
whoopsies.
Funny.
Yep, you just end up not anywhere near the bosses you're supposed to be fighting. Smolder on, they fixed an issue where with the Seeking Infernos that allowed threat information to be generated from them. So yeah, that's an interesting one to me, where apparently I assume that would not only cause some latency issues, but also potentially your healers would get tracked more often than anyone else because they're generating threat on the Seeking Infernos. That's my assumption of what this other effect is.
That's what you would think, yeah. I mean, I don't know how this was really affecting anything in practice, but that's kind of what you jump to, right? Like something like that.
Yeah. So, hopefully that's not a thing. Or like, I wonder if you could AoE taunt as a warrior or something and like get all of the Inferno's attention on you. I don't know. Like,
yeah, maybe.
Either way, that was an interesting thing that they went through and resolved. They also removed the first instance of Blaze from the intermission on Mythic for Farak, the Blazing. So this is also an easier nerf for Farak, so just making sure more people can get that done, as well as reducing the health on Screaming Souls. So we'll probably see a lot more Mythic kills on that difficulty with those changes that went through. As far as dungeons go, we have a fix inside Blackrock Hold where Bone Breaking Strike no longer stuns pets. So all of your hunters and warlocks and mages can rejoice and have their pets continue to do damage without getting stunned. They also address an issue inside Darkheart Thicket where Tormented Bloodseeker's Dark Soul Bite is draining more health than intended to on Mythic Plus difficulties. So if you're someone who's like, wow, that hits really hard, that is getting resolved. So don't worry about that.
That was brutal, like horrendous. And I did a Darkheart last night. I did Darkheart this week. Now, granted, not Fort, but like I actually stood there and tanked the bats and for a while. And they didn't even eat through my trinket too fast. So up until this point, this has just been like, you don't tank this pack because Dark Soul Bite is just way too dangerous. Like you hop in, you build some threat, and you run away. And you ran away for as long as you can. That is probably no longer necessary in many situations now. It might still be a good idea on like 4 weeks. But on tyrannical weeks, it didn't seem necessary. So that's good. It was by far the most like damaging thing in the whole dungeon, which, it's hard to know if that's intentional or not, right? You basically have the one pack that's all these bats, and then there's one other bat in a pack that a lot of groups will skip, and I don't know if there's really any more of these anywhere else in the dungeon, so it was like, are they just supposed to be like this? Maybe, but apparently not.
Yeah. Waycrest Manor, they went in and they addressed two issues with the Triad, the Heartsbane Triad. where when they were being interrupted while doing different abilities, and they weren't holding the iris, they could just turn and melee someone really quickly. Which you can imagine on like a tyrannical week on a reasonably high keystone could just mean a melee dies, where just like, I interrupted them, turn, punch. Oh, okay, well, that was...
Yeah, they didn't like that. They didn't want to be interrupted.
No. They also addressed an issue with the Soulbound Goliath, where its Soulthorn's health was scaling with Fortified instead of Tyrannical. Yeah, bosses and their minions are only supposed to scale with Tyrannical. So your Fortified weeks had the Soulbound Goliath being harder than it should have been because of how that was scaling. So that will ease things up a little bit on those Fortified weeks with that. But also spice things up more on Tyrannical. So keep that in mind for this week if you're doing the Soulbound Goliath. So yeah, just have that in the back of your mind while you're doing these sorts of things. There was PvP balancing and fixes that went through. So obviously if you're someone who cares deeply about PvP, be sure you go in and check out your Druid, Hunter, Paladin, Shaman, Rogue, or Warlock changes that kicked in. They also made it so the Gladiator's distinction, the trinket set bonus, the primary stat for DPS and tank specializations is now been increased by 12%, which is not actually a buff. It was 20%, so it's actually an 8% nerf. It's all about how they word these things, man. It's now increased by 12%. You're like, yes, but it was 20, so you just nerfed it by 8%. In arenas, battlegrounds, and war mode. So just keep that in mind if you're using that trinket set, that you obviously lost 8% of your damage if you're a DPS or tank spec. So yeah, keep that in mind. Okay, we've gotten there, Jason. We have arrived at the road ahead for World of Warcraft in 2024. We got 2 roadmaps.
Yes.
These
very exciting.
Yes.
Roadmaps are sometimes, roadmaps are a staple of the live service game in this day and age, and sometimes they're a meme, right? They put a thing out, and you're like, yeah, okay, we'll see about that. Depending on what game you follow or whatever.
Dance Studio, what's this doing it now?
Yeah, it's like stuff just doesn't go according to plan. Now, I gotta say, the 2023 roadmap for World of Warcraft was pretty on point. I don't think overall the roadmap and everything disappointed too many players. I think they delivered on what they said they were going to in the way that they said they were going to do it for the most part, and we had some surprises in there as well.
Yep. And
I think it was a huge success. It was the first time they'd ever done anything like that, and I think it really paid off. So, sometimes you roll your eyes when the live service game puts out the roadmap for the year, and you're like, okay, let's see what this is going to be, or you go back and compare it at the end of the year, but WoW's 1 for 1 so far, so we gotta give them the benefit of the doubt, I guess, for the 2024 roadmap, which is quite ambitious.
Yes, so we already know what's happening in the Seeds of Renewal update, because we've talked about that before. So we're getting the Dragon Isles epilogues, we're getting Reclaiming of Gilneas, Dragon Riding Worldwide, Follower Dungeons, Azerothian Archives, Outland Cup. That's all happening in the winter, so we're talking January, February, something around that time. We're going to see that kick off March at the latest for what's happening with that. Now, before we move into what's happening in Season 4, which is supposed to be coming in the early spring, we have just an icon that no one knows what it means. There's basically a Jolly Roger symbol, which is the Skull and Bones, listed as a 10.2.6 update that's going to be coming to the game. And that's all we know. Yeah.
I love it.
So
I don't know. It's got to be some kind of pirate theming, right? You got the Jolly Roger on there. It's a black flag with a Jolly Roger on it.
Yep.
That's some kind of pirate content. And see my earlier comments about my Drake armor. Like, I'm here for whatever that is. We have no idea. Like,
no idea.
But what a cool way to sort of tease it out and everything too. Like I love that they threw this in here, even if it's just some minor thing. It'll definitely pique my interest. So that was like the first kind of big surprise. Is like, we kind of figured, okay, 10.2.5, we already know, that's coming. Obviously, It's on PTR. We had it pretty much penciled in for January, which they did say it's on track for January.
Yeah.
No real surprise there. But then immediately it's like, okay, well, here's Jolly Roger. What do you think this means?
Yeah. And hiding down below Season 4, we have the War Within Alpha kicking off sometime in the late winter, early spring. So we can sort of get some timeline estimations happening with that, but just keep that in mind. We'll just bookmark that for now. But that is an exciting thing to see them throw on this. It also, to me,
I think that means probably like February, March for first alpha look. That's what it sounds like to me.
And it also means to me, if they're announcing when the alpha is taking place, there might be alpha access going out to some people that are able to actually talk about it and share some things. So I'm curious as to what that's going to look like as well. Typically, we just hear about betas, and alphas are not something that are advertised as much. So it's interesting to me. They're showing us the timeline. They're saying, okay, this is when alpha's kicking off. This is when beta's kicking off. This is when the release is supposed to be happening. And obviously not specific dates for any of those things, just like wishy-washy kind of time of year things, seasonal areas that they're planning to do these things in. So I don't know. It's a curious thing to me. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with it and how public it's going to be.
That's an interesting point, because I don't think that they normally, we haven't seen them sort of advertise alpha like this before. Like, I think of Dragonflight Alpha, and I remember we got invited to like a pre-alpha event and everything, and then it was like the whole push for alpha happened at that time, like right before there were publicly playable servers, or not publicly, but people outside of Blizzard, right? So this time they're letting us know, like, okay, alpha's going to land in this window here. And I mean, it is sort of like straddling the line from winter to spring a little bit. So, I mean, February would be incredible, but that might be a little too early, but that would be cool. I think, we have some other stuff to touch on that hopefully we'll see in alpha, which is the hero talents. And that I think that'd be the big highlight of, early on in alpha. Is like, okay, what's the idea for these and how are they shaping up? And because if you remember Dragonflight Alpha Beta, there was so much that happened with the talent reworks and how the trees were built and what the talents did and all that. And then that continued all the way through like 10.1.5 or something, with the huge tree reworks and everything. So be cool to start digging into that stuff, as early as possible.
Yeah. So then we have Season 4 launch happening early spring or mid-spring. This is the Dragonflight Raids Revisited, so we know that that's actually what they're doing. We've confirmed that Season 4 is what we expected it to be. It is going to be a remash of the earlier raids, most likely with some sort of affix or spicy twist to them on a rotating schedule. So people are going to different raids every week if they want to try and get better gear rewards and defeating bosses with a twist attached to it. A new PvP season is going to kick off. A new Mythic Plus season is going to kick off, which we should expect come with a new rotation of dungeons, which should be pretty exciting. And new open world rewards. I don't know necessarily if this means that they're going to put an event in, because this has been the expansion of events for folks to get out there and gain things, or whether this means there's going to be a new world boss that's going to happen, or what the plan is for Season 4. But we know we're getting new open world rewards, which presumably would be there for players to get cosmetics, as well as catch up quicker with the current Season 4 content. So we'll have to see what that looks like for everybody.
Yeah, I wonder if that's just going to be a refresh of the existing stuff, and if it's like, they're not calling it Faded at this point.
No.
Which, that was kind of tied to specifically sort of the Shadowlands aesthetic, right? But if we have that concept of, okay, we're revisiting Dragonflight raids, and this week is going to be Vault of the Incarnates, and so that's the higher item level thing, and the world boss from that is higher level, and all of the 10.0 outdoor events have new rewards, just higher item level rewards or whatever. Maybe it's that. Maybe there's like one new event or thing to do that's just like, that's the one that actually matters, and all the other stuff we can just stop even thinking about. That would be okay. But no, like, huge surprises here for me, at least in terms of what they teased out. We didn't really get any tease about what the dungeon pool is going to look like or whatever. Yeah, like PvP reset, yes. New Mythic Plus season. I assume that means, new dungeon pool and everything. But, just basically endgame rewards refresh is what Season 4 has kind of turned into in the last two expansions. So that's cool. I mean, I think it worked out pretty well in Shadowlands, but it was real short. It was only like 3 months or something, right? Or 4 months. This, if this is tapped for spring, I mean, you would think that this would be maybe in like May or so. So, it might have to stand up for 5 months or something, maybe, somewhere in that neighborhood. But I think that's okay. I think that's fine. I mean, some people are going to check out. I mean, spring, summertime tends to be a bit slower for people's attendance and stuff anyway, because they're doing stuff, and not everybody is really keen on the idea of doing the same raids for new gear again. But I thought it was pretty fun at the end of Shadowlands. It was a bit more chill, especially after a couple weeks when People got geared up.
Well,
we got some extra faded affixes, and it was just like, okay, raid's an hour and a half long. Everything's dead. Thanks for coming, everybody. If we end up getting back there, then I think it's a nice little placeholder. And New Mythic Plus always gives the people that want to get sweatier among the raid group, okay, new stuff to chase, teleports, high gear, the currency for the crests and all that. All right, let's go grind it all up, So.
I'll also add that, and we'll talk about this more when we get to the classic roadmap, but this is where the Cataclysm Classic sort of like pre-patch and then launch kicks off. So it is also the right time for, hey, you've done Season 4 for a couple of months. Look, it's Classic Cataclysm if that's something you're interested in. You'll probably have a raid team with at least 3 or 4 people who are really keen on this and are desperately waiting for it to happen, who are going to vanish from your raid team and go and do that for that period of time. So it also is like, it's just a good window of time, I think, for this to happen. So we'll see how that goes. But I want to talk about Dark Heart, which is the 10.2.7 update, and how fitting with this expansion for the name, Dark Heart. This has some things, has 2 things in it that we just have no idea what it's going to be. First and foremost, we have time running with Pandemonium, because literally panda is spelt panda as opposed to pandemonium, as in D-E.
It's not pandemonium like all the demons. It's pandemonium.
Yeah.
Like really fast pandas.
Yeah. And we did see Windrunner put out a tweet saying there's no typos in the roadmaps. So we know that this is intended this way, and it's called Time Running. And we have no idea what this is going to be. Speculation from what I've heard and what I kind of am leaning on the lines of is a revisit to challenge modes. And if they're doing a revisit to challenge modes and they're doing Pandemonium, is there a chance, Jason, that we see a revisit to the challenge mode armor sets that everyone loves from back in the day?
They were really cool. I think you'd have to do recolors on them or something, though. I hope this isn't challenge mode, unless challenge mode gets like a real kind of rework, so it's actually fun. I famously hated challenge mode. I did it. I refused to do it with my guildies. I had people who got like multiple sets on different classes, and I was like, I am not doing this with you guys.
There's a reason why those armor sets are so rare, and the weapons from Warlords of Draenor challenge modes are so rare, is so few people participated in those events on the level that was needed to earn those things. So I don't know what this is. That's where it seems like the popular opinion is drifting, just because of the fact that it's called Time Running and it's Pandemonium. It's
going to be Miss Pandaria content, right? Like we can tick those boxes for sure, because you got the word time and you got the word panda. So it's some kind of Pandaria thing. And then you think like, okay, what would there be to revisit from Miss Pandaria? Well, there's the raid content, there's the there's the scenarios, there's the challenge mode dungeons.
Yeah, is this a way of saying we're going to get time walking Pandaria raid? Are we getting Siege of Orgrimmar time walking?
Maybe.
Like, is this happening? Can you get Garrosh shoulders time walking? Is that a thing?
Maybe. I would like to point out we didn't really get a big time walking refresh this expansion, and we've been used to. We should have had BFA time walking in 10.2.5. As bizarre as that sounds coming out of my mouth, like it's time for BFA time walking, and they didn't do it. So, is this like, are they going to expand MOP time walking as part of this patch or something? Like, I would love Throne of Thunder to come back as a time walking raid, and so maybe it's Time Running because it's a bigger scope of all that stuff, and we're taking a deeper dive into MOP content in a
as opposed to time walking, you're time running, right? So it's maybe something along those lines. If it's just like, oh, we're bringing back challenge modes and we tweaked it a bit, but it's the same concept of complete the dungeon as fast as you can and there's cool rewards, like, I'll try it and I'll try not to hate it. But for those who didn't do it, the MOP and Warlords challenge dungeons were just foot races. Yeah. And they were tuned like hard. They were the precursor to Mythic Plus. Yep. But the prevailing meta strats and the way that you got the gold runs to unlock all the stuff was basically to just cheese out the whole dungeon. It was speedrunning. It really was speedrunning. Yeah.
Yeah, like actually trying to approach the dungeon and prevail in combat was not going to get you the timers ever. You had to do very specific trickery in order to skip huge portions of the dungeon in order to time it. And to me, that's not fun. That's not why I'm in the dungeon. That's not why I'm playing World of Warcraft. You know, I want to participate in the combat. And so I don't know. If it's something like that, I wouldn't be stoked about it, but I'd give it a shot. And I think they probably learned some lessons for, like, obviously they stopped doing challenge dungeons after 2 expansions and then iterated that into Mythic Keystone. So I don't know. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know. But it jumps off the page at you here. You're like, what is that? What does this mean?
Yeah. The next thing that would pretty much know what it is the Harbinger quests, which are obviously the quests that are going to lead up to the pre-patch event. So just sort of giving people a heads up about what's coming next kind of idea.
Got to be Xal'atath stuff, right? Xal'atath is the Harbinger, so I'm expecting Xal'atath front and center with some story and maybe some, IGCs and cutscenes and cinematics and, one-time story questing and stuff. Yeah. So that's cool. I think they've had good success with that in the past of like, we're going to build a bridge from here to the next expansion, like Legion into BFA, for example. I thought that was cool the way that played out. So looking forward to that. I think Xal'atath's a really cool character, and I'm looking forward to where the story goes from here. So I'm never going to be sad about new campaign quests to do.
I'm expecting a Xal'atath book at some point. I really am. I think it'll probably happen.
Maybe. Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah. I mean, it would be. They have used the novels a lot to establish the villains because it's kind of hard to do in the game. Like you have to just go kill the villain, so you don't have a lot of time to set it all up.
Exactly.
Like we want to go fight. We got to get the loot. That's what we're here to do. You can kind of dig into who the villains are as people. In the novels a bit better.
Yeah. You also have the Troll and Draenei heritage armor is going to be coming in, so. Hopefully we have that axe thrower, old school troll armor, something themed along that line. Yeah. Would be really neat. And I mean, Draenei has so much iconic armor to pick from.
Just
it's hard
big,
to
like Vindicator thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Right. Like it's hard to pick something that would be really fitting because there's like 4 different armors that are just really cool.
Right.
And then
are these the last 2? These are the last 2, I think, aren't they? Everybody else has their heritage armor now.
Oh, I didn't even check. I didn't even look.
I think. I mean, just off the top of my head, I think this is it.
You might be right. Yeah.
So we might be collecting the whole set by 10 through. I guess I better do Undead. I don't think I ever did that. So I'm gonna get. I got a few months here because we're looking at spring summer. So this is probably what? This is probably like
June,
May, June, something like that. So yeah, I got some time. But yeah, I mean, heritage armor I think is one of the coolest things they've put in the game. The quest lines have mostly been really awesome. The looks are great and it really brings out, that fantasy if you're really in tune with that for your character. So I've been waiting to finish these up for years, man. It's been since late Legion that this concept came in. And so here we're just about finished up, I think. I mean, somebody chime in, if you've been waiting and your race doesn't have your heritage armor, let us know because I forgot if that's the case.
Yeah. New holiday event. This is the other thing. We have no idea what it is. There's just a new holiday event coming in. And they didn't say micro holiday. They said new holiday. So what could it be? What could they be celebrating? Typically, they're based off a real world holiday that happens. I don't know. I don't know what they could be celebrating. So this is spring to summer, and it's a new holiday event. So we'll have to find out what that is when they get closer to it, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I'm trying to think what the last big holiday that we saw came in is, and it just escapes me. There's no way I could pull that out of my brain right now. But they've moved into more of the micro holiday model since Legion. And just here's the thing that happens one day a year, and you get this one little reward, or not even. But this is a whole other thing. So I mean, what falls in this late spring, early summer window? I don't know. I mean,
it's almost always something US based, right? So
usually, it's usually tied to real life, real world stuff. And obviously it's an American game dev. So it's a lot of stuff's tied to American holidays. I don't know. Maybe it's some kind of Independence Day theme.
That's all I can think of, man.
But how do you bring, that's so weird to bring into Azeroth.
WoW, I agree.
Maybe it's some kind of faction unity celebration, right? Like Alliance and Horde hanging out and grilling hot dogs or something.
Yeah,
maybe something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a curious one. I'm curious as to what it is, so we'll have to wait and see. Then we have the War Within beta kicking off sometimes late spring, early summer, probably closer to early summer. So that would be something that people will most likely, they'll do like a closed beta, and then they'll have an open beta weekend or whatever, and then they'll have their like early access beta for pre-ordering the game. Like I assume all these things will take place. These are all assumptions, but yes, we'll be seeing War Within beta, which will mean that we're much farther along in the process. Typically, betas happen 3 months before launch, or close to 3 months before launch, which is, lining up proper for a fall launch for War Within. So we'll have to wait and see as to what happens with that. But we then have the War Within pre-patch. This is world events, war bands come in, dynamic flight comes in, the guild updates come in, and by guild updates, this is the cross server guilds. So you'll be able to have essentially, Jason could go back to his old server, yet still stay inside Zeros to Heroes if he wanted to, which I think he's actually already talked about doing. So we'll have to find out what actually happens with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had the thought. Go home. Yep. Or the other cool thing is, like, I can take a bunch of my alts and move them into ZTH, and I can just have one, I have one tune parked in Integrity to hold the name and the bank and everything. Yep. And then I don't have all these other tunes sort of sequestered off. This update came in about a year too late for my crew, but hey, better late than never. And I didn't even think about this. It would be getting war bands and everything in the pre-patch. Like, that's going to be awesome. And this might only be like 6 months out, like you said. Maybe not even. Who knows? Like, this is not really that far away in like realistic human time. And it's like, man, like the quality of life upgrades that we're going to get just right at pre-patch are going to be massive, with dynamic flight war bands and cross-realm guilds. And then, obviously, there, as they always do, there'll be some new stuff to do that bridges the gap from Dragonflight to War Within, and, probably provides catch-up gear and maybe some leveling acceleration. Yeah. So, they don't dig into what it is. I don't know. The world events, the last two have been kind of just like, all right, hang out in a place, kill a rare every so often. Okay, thanks. Which is fine.
This will be more about the voice and hearing the voice and what's happening with it, and like that's what this is all going to be.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool if it had a little bit more of a little bit more meat to it than just like, okay, I fly around here until the rare pops and then I kill it and then I log out. Not that I want like a whole laundry list of stuff to do on every alt in that window before expansion comes out, but like, just something with a little more meat on the bone, or something a little more dynamic, maybe. Something a little bit like something in the capital cities, or it's always cool when they do stuff like that, versus go to Ice Crown and then just loop around and kill all the rares on the timer.
Right. Yeah. But we then have the release of War Within, obviously coming after the pre-patch. This is going to be late summer, early fall. This is earlier than I expected. I'm just putting that out there. We're going to get the campaign story, delves, hero talents, earthen allied races, 4 new zones, 8 new dungeons, new raid, a new PvP season, all kicking off with the launch of this. But the way that they've placed this tells me that this is probably a September or maybe even late August release. Either late September or late August release potential for this expansion, which we're talking about like, that's like when Pandaria dropped, as well as like some of the other expansions have dropped. But because of the next thing in this list, which I'm just going to highlight right now real quick, which is the War Within content update for the 05 patch, stories and quests, new content, and systems updates, and the 20th anniversary event, happens after this. And we all know when the 20th anniversary is. It's mid-November. So if that's the case, most likely we're seeing War Within a good distance ahead of that. Like, we're seeing it like a couple of months ahead of that, which means we're probably looking at that August or September release for War Within, and people then having time to explore that content, actually be doing raiding, have all that stuff going, have the usual dates for BlizzCon, which I'm assuming is going to happen with a 20th anniversary event at it. So that's end of October, right? And so that's 11.05 at that point, which means a couple of months, right? So yeah, this is, I don't know, man. Like, this is exciting. I expected this expansion to be launched at BlizzCon just because it's, timing wise seemed to make sense to be like 20th anniversary lines up with War Within release excitement, but they're not doing that. So cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is about what I expected. I'm really hoping for that September-ish release, that Miss Pandaria window, like you kind of talked about. I think that'd be great timing for this expansion release. And at BlizzCon they kind of said fall. What did they say? Fall or late 2024 or something. I forget exactly what the graphic said off the top of my head, but I think the November window is where we've been for the last couple, and it's sort of reasonable to just okay, it's about a year or whatever. But then you think like, okay, they've kind of talked about doing an update every 2 months, right?
Yep.
So you figure that means January 10.25. Okay, so then March is probably 10.27. Season 4, something like that, and then or maybe Season 4 is in March, and then 10.27 is in May. So we get the roll. We got 10.26 in there, so who knows if that's going to be... we don't know what that's going to look like, right?
Yeah.
So that might throw it off a bit. It looks like Season 4 launches on 10.26 data, so that's probably like March. 10.27 is probably like May, and then beta is probably like July, and then pre-patch is August into expansion in September. I don't think that's completely unthinkable based on what we've seen for the last year plus of World of Warcraft updates. And like you said, we know that, okay, 11.0.5, it's got to come after the expansion. It's going to have the stuff for 20th anniversary events. It's got to come out before like November 16th or whatever, when they usually kick off the anniversary event. I mean, they could do whatever they want, right? It's their game, so they could shift the stuff around, but they tell us this stuff for a reason. It's on the roadmap, so we have an idea of when it happens, right? So, so that's the idea that we have for that last piece. And then so you go, it's like about 2 months between each of these patches, right? Like, now things do get probably a little wobbly after 10.2.7 into 11.01, right? Like,
I think that beta might happen
a little bit. Yeah,
that beta might happen in June. It might not happen in July. Like, sometimes there's 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's things that we don't know, right? Like 10.2.7 could happen for all we know in April. Like, we don't know,
right?
Like, that's just the way they've sort of laid it out. So
right,
we'll find out.
Just going by like the about 2 months for every content release model, and it brings you to about September. So I mean, dude, I would be thrilled. If we end up getting Season 4 in, say, if that's in
March,
April, May, like if we get 10.25 in January. Well, I don't know. I guess 10.26 is going to be earlier, right? So then, we're looking like March, April for Season 4.
Yeah.
And then Season 4 only has to really exist for like 5 months, and then we're into expansion. Like, I think that would be, especially with all the other stuff coming in around
patches. Like 5 months with 2 patches. Like, that's big.
With the .7 and with all the big refresh and the ramp up into expansion, plus, I mean, SOD hanging out there, and Cataclysm if you want to go that route or whatever. It's like we're going to be eating just fine with World of Warcraft stuff, even with no new raid instance between now and War Within. I feel like, I mean, I see this and I go, this is everything I wanted. This confirms my optimism. This is what I was hoping I was going to see. And then there's all kinds of stuff in here that I couldn't even imagine. So the roadmap is awesome, man. I'm glad they've moved to this model, and I have confidence in the team that they're going to deliver on this stuff like they did last year. And the team's invigorated. I mean, we felt it at BlizzCon, just talking to devs and stuff. Like, the people who work on this game love World of Warcraft. Like, at least the ones that every WoW dev I've talked to, like, loves this game and they love making it. Obviously work is work, and your job sucks sometimes. That's true of anybody, but like, they really do love the game and they want to make it as cool as they possibly can. And I think that energy becomes kind of infectious, and it's fun to see it kind of come into the game. Like, this release schedule is so ambitious, man. There is so much stuff here for us to do, and I'm just really excited. I'm stoked at the way this all came together. This came out yesterday, or was it Tuesday? I can't quite remember, but it was just like, wow. I mean, look at all this. What even is some of this stuff, and that's always a fun moment.
Yeah. All right, so one of the things that's happening in this next expansion is hero talents, and they actually did a preview of hero talents. Now keep in mind, all of this is pre-alpha information, which means it can change dramatically in the next period of time, but they sort of want to highlight what their goals are and expectations are for hero talents. Hero talents unlock access at level 71. Players will then have access to these things. They are specializations, which we saw at BlizzCon all highlighted there, of things like for warriors, they're going to have Slayer, Colossus, and Mountain Thane as sort of their specs that they can choose to go into. These things cross over between two of those different specs. So Fury Warriors can get access to Mountain Thane and Slayer. Protection has access to Mountain Thane and Colossus. Arms has access to Colossus and Slayer. So it's that kind of idea of how those all sort of merge in a Venn diagram out there. There's going to be 11 nodes in a hero talent tree for people to actually spend points into. You're going to earn each of those points per level between level 71 and 80. So you get every talent point in the tree by level 80. And basically, the whole thing kicks off with a keystone talent that introduces the core mechanics of that concept of that tree. And the bottom of the tree is the capstone, which is very normal for how talent trees have worked previously, that builds on those core themes in the tree and sort of makes a new power or kick off like big ultra ability kind of idea as that capstone point. Each tree will offer and modify some class utility, including defenses, bonuses that are useful for all specializations. So you're going to have both, stuff that makes Thunderclap do cool things while at the same time making sure that you survive while you're doing the cool things. So keep that in mind about these trees. Trees for characters that can take on a tanking role may have some additional defensive bonuses that will be less valuable to healers or damage, such as bonuses to tank, talent cooldowns. 3 or 4 nodes in the tree will be choice nodes where you can choose between 2 options. So something we see now inside of our talent trees, so it's nothing new there, but just keeping people in mind of there's going to be a lot of choice and maneuverability as far as your spec goes. Hero talents meant to add damage or healing throughput to be significant without being so important that these talents overshadow your current class and spec tree. Most hero talents add visual effects to classes, both to communicate what they're doing and to bring their class fantasies to life. However, these are not complete visual reworks. Your class and spec spec are still the same at their core, and they'll continue that through. So yes, we are getting more visual. We saw visual updates with Covenant abilities. These are then going to have visual updates that affect your abilities. So maybe your Thunderclap goes from being this like lightning that sort of radiates out from you to being like lightning plus a circle, and that circle expands out, grabs mobs, and sucks them into you or something, right? And pulls everything close to you, and then stuns it for a second. So maybe there's like a thunder and then a crash, right? So it's that kind of concept of lightning goes out, pulls everything in, explodes again, stuns everything around you. That sort of visual effect is something that they're going to be adding. So when you choose these abilities, you're going to feel them in your gameplay more so than like, I click this passive thing, and now I just know that this effect that I'm doing all the time that looks the same is also doing something else. It's important that it brings that fantasy to life for your character when you're actually making these choices. So wicked. I'm very happy that they're doing that. Jason, do you want to hop in anything about this so far?
Yeah, I mean, I just think this is, for me, this was the real highlight of the War Within presentation at BlizzCon. As weird as that is, like, it's always cool to see what the new story is going to be. And like, obviously the new zones look gorgeous and everything. That's always great stuff. I expect that to be great. Like, frankly, the team has delivered on it time and time again. And I expect the zones look cool and have cool stuff to do. And that, it involves like characters that I'm invested in and everything along those lines. The delves and all that stuff looks really cool too. But hero talents are what we're really going to be digging into on our characters every time we play the game, for the whole expansion. And I'm glad we get this early preview of them and that they're really laying out expectations for like, what are these things and how do you interact with them, right? Like, how do they impact your gameplay? I think that's really important. I do think it's kind of a tricky line to walk where you want them to be cool and flexible, but you don't want them to overshadow other things about the class. And also your mind immediately goes to, well, what happens in Midnight? do we get 10 more of these, or do we get 10 different ones of some different theming, and do we just keep tacking this on forever, and don't we eventually end up with the same problem that resulted in the talent trees going away in the first place? But that's that's another story for another time. I mean, I think the theming is really cool for me. I mean, Mountain Thane. You go back to the Mountain King hero from Warcraft 3, which I always thought was super cool. And never really, like, you've had Thunderclap since like day one, but that whole thing didn't really come in as much, And looking at sort of the early mock-ups for how the Mountain Thane tree is going to look, like, it seems really cool and really really thematic, like really bringing that the idea of like sort of commanding the thunder, in combat. It sounds awesome, And the video they showed, like, you got the Stormbolt talent that like splits off. You get like the cleaving Stormbolt and everything. And man, I think thematically, like from what little we've seen, it really speaks to players a lot. We haven't seen all the different specs yet. We haven't seen everything in action yet, but the stuff that they were ready to show us, I think is exciting. I like the fact that it's sort of along the lines of your Legion artifact weapon in terms of, okay, I play through the content and I unlock all this stuff. And, maybe I have some differences or some choices in like how I get there, but I end up with having all of it, and then I can flex between the choice nodes and whatever. There's not any kind of like punitive thing that you get into if you made a quote unquote wrong choice or whatever, right? You're going to get to max level. You're going to be able to swap your talents around as much as you want to. There's no, there's no covenant choice that you're locked into or whatever. There's no conduit energy cooldowns and all that. It's just taking the cool stuff that we like about speccing out a character and just adding that other layer on it where it's more thematic. It's more of the fantasy versus the role. We've seen stuff that's very class focused or very spec focused, but to me, this stuff feels more fantasy focused, which is kind of a first in how they approach class abilities. Maybe we had to go through all that stuff, right? And we had to establish all that for a while, and now they can add this kind of other more aesthetic layer on, I think. So I'm really excited about the system.
Yeah, I'm excited about the system. I don't know if I'd say that this is more focused on fantasy. I think they've always been very focused on fantasy, and class fantasy is very important to them. So I do feel like this enhances the fantasy in a big way. This is like certainly a multiplier being attached to the current game fantasy. But I think at the same time, it's still going to be a really fun system to play the game in mechanically as well. They go on to say, our goal is for both options to feel similarly effective. It's both options in the choice. You have the choice in the talent tree, but also just both options of like, hey, I want to play Mountain Thane, or hey, I want to play Colossus. To feel similarly effective in raid, dungeons, Mythic Plus, and PvP. So they're working to avoid abilities or bonuses in hero talents that could make a certain tree feel required for activities where they can. So that's huge, in my opinion, that you might see like Colossus, tanks or whatnot rolling around doing stuff, as opposed to having everyone have to be Mountain Thane if they're going to tank on a warrior. Like, that's neat if they can actually create that level of viability, and maybe lower keys do something different, or maybe certain bosses do something different, and that's something you want to swap around or focus on. I think that's exciting, and I'm glad they're keeping that choice in there. They then do a bit of a blog here that I'm actually going to read the whole thing on, where they say how we choose hero talent concepts, because I think it's important to understand how they're choosing these things. So they said, since we announced hero talents at BlizzCon, it's been great to see all the conversation and speculation surrounding the 39 hero talent titles. Oh my God. We'd like to share some of our thinking that went behind choosing those concepts. Just think about the amount of work 39 different hero talent titles is, let alone all the talent trees for them and how they affect all the abilities. Oh my God. Each hero talent concept must be appropriate for both the specs that can use, for both the specs that can use it. Some concepts build on overlaps in abilities or flavors between two specs that can use it, like Colossus Warrior, which are as mighty as arms and then as imposing as protection warriors. Others create new themes that are appropriate for both specs, like Fatebound for rogues. Hero talents also retain your combat role and the gear that you use, so you're not competing for new gear types. For iconic Warcraft character archetypes, we wanted to be sure that we delivered on their fantasy with World of Warcraft's classes. Blade Masters just wouldn't be Blade Masters without abilities like Windwalk and Mirror Image, but those abilities don't fit in a Warrior's toolkit. Lastly, there are several iconic character archetypes that are strongly tied to specific races and factions, such as Keeper of the Grove or Mountain Thane. It's exciting to embody these storied archetypes. We want to ensure that characters of every race and faction can see themselves as those archetypes. We're open to feedback on what feels good about your character versus what's frustrating. So I definitely understand that last part of being like, look, we understand that Night Elves and Keepers of the Grove or Dwarves and Mountain Thane just kind of go together, and that by choosing these sorts of things, we don't want anyone to feel like, hey, you're playing a troll and you want to be a warrior, and this doesn't make sense to be a Mountain Thane, right? Like, I get that. So I'm glad they're looking at that and keeping that in mind when they're designing these things. So I don't know. I agree with you that I think there is a focus on fantasy. I think this is such a rich character choice that is not a permanent choice. It's not like we're back in Shadowlands with, hey, once you pick, you're picked, and switching is going to be hard. That's not the situation. I'm excited to see where they end up going with this kind of stuff for all the other specs that are out there. The 39 of them. Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, it really, like, your mind immediately goes to how much kind of work this is to build this stuff out and maintain it. I mean, I don't know. We can't help as players but think of, like, where does this look like 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? But yeah, it is hard with this game to, like, live in the moment and be like, hey, this is really cool, because you're always just, like, worried for when it becomes not cool. I don't know. Yeah. I find that way for myself. And you know, sometimes it never becomes not cool. But one thing that I glean from this is that Blade Master class confirmed. Like, someday. Somebody needs Windwalk and Mirror Image. Yep. And you know, it's not Warrior, so yeah, my dream of the Blade Master class lives somehow. I think that would be really fun, and it is an archetype from Warcraft 3 that's still missing. But you know, it does have to be sort of a hard thing around the theming, is to, like, pick, like, okay, how do we narrow this down? You know, there are probably some classes where you have to add stuff in more, like Evoker, right? Evoker's a brand new concept in Dragonflight, so you sort of have to build that up, and, like,
I almost feel like that gives you more freedom, because
it does, for sure.
you can really build whatever you want, because it's not like I've been playing my rogue for the last 20 years. Don't screw with my class fantasy, right? You don't have those people as much sticking around. So I feel like the Evoker folks kind of have their job as a bit easier than people who are like, I'm walking on glass, trying to make sure I don't anger everyone by being like, yes, the rogues are going to be, you know, thieves as one of their themes. And you're like, no, that's not appropriate for what my rogue is, right? And you're like, oh man, okay.
Right. No. Right, but you gotta come up with some stuff that's really cool for, you know, one of the newer or more narrower classes, maybe, because you know, hunters are getting Dark Ranger after all these years. You know, Mountain Thane's coming in, and you know, there's this, some of the stuff that's been kind of underrepresented or sort of on the fringes. Or wouldn't it be cool if my class was like this NPC? Like, a lot of that's going to come to life through the system, and you know, so the newer stuff has to kind of ascend to that level of coolness, and then the stuff that people already think is cool has to meet those expectations. So it is a lot, but I mean, I think the way that they're implementing it sounds really smart, because it's so flexible, and that was the big win with the initial talent rework in 10.0, was like, okay, there's some problems here, and there's some trees that need to be cleaned up, and there's balancing. That's a never-ending job, right? And that's not going to end. That hasn't ended, and it never will end, probably, until they move on to a different system. But, you know, people can play what they think is cool and flex it around. And if it turns out to not be working for their playstyle, or it's not good for the content that they're doing, then they can just change it, and they can try something different. And there's not some huge process of reacquiring something, or doing some questing, or grinding something out, or paying some expense. And then also when there's rebalancing, you know, like, oh, the thing I like to play, or the thing that I play because it's good, now it's not good, so I want to play the other thing. Well, now I'm not, there's no burden on me as the player. I just pick the thing that is good, and then I feel good about it, you know?
Right.
I think the challenge here, which what I'm curious to see how it develops with hero talents is like they are sort of going out of their way in this blog post to say like we don't want hero talents to be like these overpowered like spec or class defining abilities that like everything hinges around. Right. We want them to add flavor and we want them to add options to your gameplay. That is such a fine line to walk, especially for this game and especially 20 years in. Like how I'm curious to see how that's going to play out in terms of the impact that these things really feel like they're adding to our gameplay. And if you do get those outliers where, you know what, if you don't pick this particular talent on this choice node, you're doing it wrong. If you don't pick this particular hero talent tree, like you're just wrong. Like I know you think Mountain Thane is cool, but you can't play it. You know, you have to pick Colossus. So what are you doing? Like, you know, those cases are going to emerge in large part because that's just the conversations we have around the game, and that's the way that WoW players sort of peer pressure each other, right? Even if the difference is negligible, or if something suits your playstyle better, if it's not determined to be correct, then you know you might have some friction around it. So this is an ambitious add to classes, but I like where they're going with it. The previews they showed for Mountain Thane Prot Warrior looked really cool and really bringing out that thunderclap fantasy with the lightning strikes and everything. So I'm excited to see how it develops, and this is the number one thing I think that everybody's going to want to check out when Alpha starts up, and like,
how your class feels to play.
What does my class look like? Yeah, like how does this work with this spec, and how does that work with that spec, and how does this all feel, and what is it actually doing? And it seems like they're going to give themselves a good few months to have that in testers' hands and get feedback with it, and obviously, they have to develop the game. They're not just going to do what we tell them, but they've been decently responsive with stuff like that. I mean, balance is, again, it's a never-ending battle, but I think they spent an admirable amount of time throughout Dragonflight retooling specs and redoing trees and stuff, and I think they probably have a lot better idea of where to go with that stuff, and I think that'll help as we sort of get used to using hero talents and sort of how they exist in the overall continuum when we're doing raids and dungeons and PvP.
Yeah, no, I agree entirely. I think they also highlight some other things inside this blog that are really important to me when it comes to these hero talents. And you sort of touched a little bit on one of them, which is some hero talents do require you to take certain talents in your class or spec trees to access their powers. This is often because those talents fit the flavor and theme of that specific hero talent tree. So if we're going to dig into talent trees and talk about things like, oh, this is the correct way to do it or the right way to do it, there are going to be some hero talents where they're like, hey, look, you can't take the thing that enhances this ability without having that ability. So you got to pick this inside your talent tree. It is going to dictate some of those things, right? So keep that in mind with them. The other thing that is crucially important to me, especially right now playing Season of Discovery, and really feeling it when you go back and forth between the two versions of WoW, is one thing they're keeping an eye on is complexity. Classes in WoW have a lot of abilities and talents, and there's a lot to learn about each one. We want hero talents to add new fun without creating new burdens, either in customizing or playing a character. Most hero talent trees do not add new buttons that players will need to sort of like add to their action bar or find a new keybind for. That's critically important to me.
Standing ovation.
Like,
please, yes. We want as few like piano options in the hero talents as possible, I think. I can't speak for everyone, but like in most of the, class and spec trees, you have options to add on more active abilities, more buttons if you want them. And if you want all of them, you can get a lot. So if we're getting 11 new talents, I don't want 11 or even 5 or 6 new buttons. I got plenty of buttons, and I want my buttons to feel cool when I push them, and so having more talents around that probably just helps. And I love the idea of monitoring complexity and trying to keep stuff maybe not necessarily streamlined, but just that, like, okay, we have like sort of a cap on how much complexity we're comfortable with. I mean, modern WoW combat is very fast and very complex, and I don't know, sometimes I play SOD and I'm like, I don't want to go all the way back here, but a little bit more deliberate combat would be okay with me.
Yeah, I enjoy a 4-button rotation, but I'd be okay with an 8 or 10 button kind of thing that I'm playing with. I have 36 buttons inside Modern WoW.
Right.
And those are buttons that are keybound. Those are buttons that I can just like easily access with my hand. I then have a whole other 24 buttons that sit on bars that I click. Things like portals and hearthstones and mounts and like that kind of stuff. Like, man, I don't need more buttons. Yeah. So
like if each one of these was giving you a chance, or half of them were giving you a chance to add a new button, it's like that would just get out of control. And at some point too, I think like if you have so many active abilities, everything sort of gets homogenized and loses a lot of flavor. It loses niches.
You make a macro that hits 5 of them at the same time. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And, we've seen this. That's another struggle with class design, right? Is like we want to add cool new stuff, but we also don't want stuff to get too complex. We want to prune abilities, but now we don't have enough abilities. So let's add some abilities back. It's like you've seen that pendulum swing over the years of this game in both directions.
I still mourn for symbiosis. I still do. I love that ability, man. I loved it. I still mourn that it's gone. Yeah. It's I don't know. There's so many things to me out there that make this game more complex, and you really do see it when you play something like Season of Discovery. You're like, they have runes. The runes do add buttons, but I'm still only at like 4 or 5 buttons that I press regularly. That's great. That feels really good. Go to Modern WoW. Holy crap! I'm using Control and Alt modifiers constantly. I have Control, Alt, and Shift modifiers, plus my normal bar. That's 48 right there. Like, what?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, and like, I think there's something to be said for having a lot of stuff too. Like, it's a double-edged sword, and there's good and bad things about all of that. But I think it definitely behooves the developers to keep an eye on this stuff and not just like add stuff because it's cool. There's all kinds of stuff that's cool, and then you can just add whatever you want if you're not paying attention to this, and then you get to a situation where classes are stepping on each other's toes, and maybe some classes are getting kind of left out because they don't have enough cool, unique stuff about them anymore that gives them a niche where you could just bring one of another class that has more better stuff anyway. And then it's a huge burden on players to keep track of and try to actually have fun with in the moment. So like, I think a lot of the way that they've done it in Dragonflight is cool because you can sort of build these more streamlined loadouts, right? If you don't want, you can cut down on the active abilities. A lot of them are around choice nodes and stuff. And I love to hear that the ethos or like the design idea with hero talents is to not add them. Like maybe there will be ones that do, but overall the idea is that this is not going to bloat up your hotbars.
Yeah. The thing to me is I always understand anyone out there who says, you know what, I want my ultimate ability, the thing at the end of my tree, to be a big button that when I press makes me feel really cool and really powerful and do all the cool things. What I love about how they've done talent trees right now is you can put that button at like level 50. And then you can have all the stuff after it, make it cooler. So when you press it, it does other things and is even more enhanced. And it ties into this other ability. And it now creates a combo that you want to use it with. And it now, like, I think that's great. And so what these hero talents do is they take some of those abilities that are so integral to your class and your class fantasy and enhance them even to be even cooler to do. I think that's great. I think it's a great way to go about it without creating bloat of being like, every expansion we've added an ultimate button and now we have, 15 ultimate buttons that people can explore and press whatever they want to. Like, no, that's not a thing that we want to explore. So I'm glad that they're going this route. So overall, good blog. I'm glad that they put it out there for folks to sort of get an idea of what they're doing as far as those classes go, as far as the idea, I guess, the concept behind the whole thing. But again, this is pre-alpha information. So if we start seeing things like, oh, Thunderclap gets enhanced by 30%, like that's not a thing. Don't pay attention to that.
It means like nothing. It means nothing outside of context. Yeah, like you get an idea of like, okay, we want this to improve this ability. That's what you should take away from it.
Yeah.
And I mean, they did say they're going to show off like, the full designs as we get closer. Yeah. Like I would imagine we'll probably see, a handful of hero talent trees every month or so, they'll just, as they feel like they have stuff ready to show off or give people an idea of where we're going. And then, we'll be in alpha. Honestly, we'll be in the alpha before we know it, and then people will be actually able to mess around with the stuff in the game environment. So
yeah, it's really important to give players that opportunity, because I just remember when we were doing beta or alpha for Dragonflight, you could take a talent in your spec tree that affected abilities in your class tree that you didn't take. So like you could literally waste points. It made no sense to be like, oh, I can take this thing that improves Innervate, but I had Denver spec'd into Innervate, so it just does nothing. And you're like, okay, like it's important to catch these things. And with 39 of them, there's going to be mistakes. So I just count on people getting out there, testing it, and finding it. So, alphas and betas are really important. All right.
Stuff that's just like not fun, not optimally fun, or presents like a choice that isn't hard enough. You want the choices to be hard, right? Like you want cool stuff on both sides. You don't want like, well, why is this a choice node if choice A is obvious and choice B stinks? Yeah. Stuff like that is I think what the testing will really help with. But I mean, yeah, we're gonna get into this in the alpha phase and stuff like in a couple months here, really. Yeah. And that's really weird to think about, but I'm glad.
Yeah, or it's coming up fast. Okay, let's talk about the 2024 Classic roadmap. We don't have to dive as deep as we did on the main game one, but it's certainly something worth covering. The Ruby Sanctum raid for Wrath of Lich King Classic coming out, January, February. This is probably the least exciting update I've had for Classic. I really didn't like Ruby Sanctum. It was not a raid tier that was great to me.
It wasn't good. It wasn't a good raid instance. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say it wasn't a good raid instance. It's sort of notorious, right? It's like one of the least beloved raid instances ever made. Yeah. They have to put it in Wrath Classic, right? Like it was part of the game. They have to put it in. So yeah, I mean, I think it's on PTR now or something. Or I think they may have even released a release date for it. This is how much attention I'm paying to Wrath Classic at the moment, but. Yeah. Putting the cap on it for good, yes, Ruby Sanctum coming up pretty soon.
Yep. Then we get our Season of Discovery update, which we were talking about February 4, most likely. This is level 40, so we go up 15 levels, which is great, because those 15 levels will take 25 levels worth of time to do, because the first 10 levels come real fast when it comes to Classic WoW. We get new runes. Presumably, these will go in slots that don't currently have runes. Maybe even some for ones that do, but I'm hoping that we see things for slots that don't, so we just have even more spice added to the pool of stuff that we're discovering. There's a new PvP event, which is not surprising at all, so Ashenvale obviously was the one for this. This will probably take place somewhere else, and we'll have to find out where. With the Gnomeregan raid, so Gnomeregan obviously going to get a little bit of a rework, more than just a little bit. It'll probably be some of the same mobs that you expect to see in there, but I imagine they'll make the route a little bit more clear, is my guess. So people aren't getting lost really frequently, because I think the worst thing you could do is create a raid inside Gnomeregan and leave the routing exactly as it is, and literally it takes 4 hours to do because 3 people can't find their way back to your group. Or if you wipe, no one can find their way back to the boss. Like, that's just not going to be a fun experience. So I'm hoping they create some routing that actually makes sense, that direct people through this place.
Oh, fingers crossed. Yeah, Gnomeregan raid will be a bit more complex in BFD, I think. Yeah. I did not see any confirmation of this anywhere, and I may just have missed it because it was in a flurry of stuff, and my attention has been all over the place in recent months and weeks, but do we know for sure that Gnomeregan is a 10-man raid? I hope so, because I think the 10-man raid format is perfect for SOD. So
we don't know that, but hopefully. Yeah.
Hopefully that is the case. And yeah, I echo the sentiment. I hope we get new runes in new gear slots. They said there would be more slots as time went on. Yeah. And so hopefully that means in as early as phase 2. It would be cool too if there were runes that maybe could go in multiple slots, because I don't know if like how many runes we're going to end up with total, but it would be really cool to mix and match runes like you currently can't. Right, yeah. And then put them on different gear slots. So maybe. I think they also mentioned they were going to mix up rune acquisition a bit too. So like if you're behind or you're leveling up a new character or whatever, if you're missing phase 1 runes, that there'll be other options as well. So that's really cool. Runes are sort of they're the linchpin of Season of Discovery, right? That's it's like the thing that it all hinges on, that and the the capped end game. But without the runes, it's not really that much different, and they mix up the gameplay so much, so making them accessible and putting more of them in sounds really cool. So obviously, like I got a big eye towards whenever phase 2 starts up. But yeah, I'm hoping got my fingers crossed for March, but February would be okay too.
Yep. We then have the classic Cataclysm beta kicking off. So folks who want to dive in and test the Cataclysm content to make sure it feels the same as it did previously can do so. And we also get and that'll take place sometime winter, spring. We then get the World of Warcraft Classic Hardcore Self-Found mode, which takes place end of winter and beginning of spring, somewhere in there. This is essentially World of Warcraft Classic Hardcore with trading and the auction house turned off. So the only stuff that you can use and get is stuff that you find out in the world yourself. So you'll essentially do a dungeon with people. You won't be able to open trade and get things from them or trade loot back and forth or anything. It's literally what you have. I'm really curious about this when it comes to things like conjured items, like conjured water and food from mages. Like, is trading literally turned off so you cannot? And it just removes that thing, so only mages can use their own conjured stuff. Only warlocks can have their own health stones. Like, is that something that's going to be taking place? Or is it a situation where they've actually been able to limit gear and consumables into a category and then conjured things into another category, and you can still have trading, or you can, whatever it is. Like, I feel like the easiest way to do this, and most likely the way they will, is disable those features. You will not be able to trade. You will not have an auction house. You won't be able to mail people things. It'll just be like, those things are turned off, and go and see how this goes. So that's the classic hardcore that we're going to have to experience sometime late winter, early spring. Yeah.
I mean, this is cool, I guess, if that's what you're into.
Yeah.
I don't see myself playing this specifically over, like, I haven't played that much hardcore, played a little bit. If I pick it back up, I think I would just pick up the tune I was already working on instead of starting a new tune in self-found mode. I don't know. I mean, it's a cool option. It's something that people have been asking for, and, getting official support for these kind of vanilla servers with messed up rules. Like, it's part awesome. It's awesome to see. So
yeah, it's part of the like survival game style motif that's out there. A lot of players who play those games like to have these options of doing like a self-found mode or a hardcore mode so it just makes sense for them to sort of start incorporating these things in, because I don't think it's that difficult to pull off. And as you said, it's something people have been asking for. So great. All right. Season of Discovery Phase 3 is going to kick off sometime mid-spring. This is going to be level 50, so just 10 level bump. And again, these are probably the 10 worst levels to level between 40 and 50. They take forever. You're going to get new runes and a new raid, so that's all we really know. So they're going to continue progressing that. But it's neat to see the timeline being like 3 months after, basically, or 2 months after we see Phase 2, we'll see Phase 3. So folks can hop in on that.
Probably Scarlet Monastery, based on the teases we saw at
probably
at BlizzCon. But I mean, who knows? That stuff could have been red herrings. It could have been, but that's sort of what they teased out, was that Scarlet Monastery would be a raid, which would be cool but huge. And I mean, hopefully 40 to 50 won't be as bad if you're walking out with some Nomergon raid gear. Just speed it up a bit,
I always hope the runes just make everything better, because they did in leveling process for a lot of people. A lot of the characters currently, like up to 25, getting runes just made the experience better. So I always hope that's the case when we see this.
I mean, if we get like 9 runes by the time we're leveling 40 to 50, I mean, that's so much power just right there. So, obviously, like, they're holding back some details on that stuff because they want people just invested in Phase 1 and moving into Phase 2. But I mean, obviously, like, there is a firm plan in place for SOD.
Yeah. Okay, Cataclysm Classic is getting its pre-patch event. This is going to be late spring. We're going to have Worgens and Goblins obviously added in with that. You get improved guild features, which I think is actually the guild summons and all that stuff is going to come in. Oh my god, the glory days of guilds.
Can we please have that back in Dragonflight? I didn't have a Warlock last night in the group. Can I please have Guild Will Travel?
The account-wide collections stuff starts kicking in, so all your mounts and stuff goes into your collections tab. And Transmog comes in as a thing. This is where the pre-patch event for Cataclysm was when everyone regretted selling anything they'd ever gathered before Cataclysm, because you then didn't have that transmog or that mount or that pet anymore, and you had to acquire it again, because now you had a place where all of it got stored without it sitting inside of a bag space and taking up bank space and all that kind of stuff. So that's going to kick off late spring. Early summer, we then have the launch of World of Warcraft Classic Cataclysm, with obviously the campaign, 4 raids, 7 dungeons, 2 heroic dungeons, a PvP battleground, and Darkmoon Island comes in. So this is where the fair stops being held at Thunder Bluff or Goldshire, and it starts actually having its own place that you go to have the fair at the island. That also came in during Cataclysm. For those who are excited for this, I think it's great for you. I will not be massively diving into Cataclysm Classic. It was an era that I spent enough time in during World of Warcraft. I don't need to go back and experience it again. That's just where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Cataclysm to this day is one of my least favorite expansions. Not to say there was nothing good about it, but like, it was the first time ever, really, since the game had came out for me, where it was like, okay, this is an obvious downturn from what we were just doing.
Yep.
Like it just was. And I mean, part of that was Wrath was so good.
Well, and we were in Cataclysm for so long. They bribed people to have a 1-year sub by saying, hey, if you sub to us, commit for a year, we'll give you Diablo 3 for free. That's literally what they did during this expansion.
I mean, Dragon Soul came out in what, like December that year? Like, so Cataclysm came out in December of 2010. And then I think Dragon Soul came out like November or December of 2011, and then that was it until Mists of Pandaria in November of 2012.
Yeah,
and Dragon Soul, in my opinion, was the worst raid they've ever made, and it did not hold up well. Like, I mean, we did it, we rated it on a weekly basis.
Every week.
But there was nothing, that was endgame, and that was what it was, and it was like, well, okay. Actually, Dragon Soul was the only time that I and some of the people I still play with got what would be the equivalent of cutting edge, because we killed Heroic Deathwing. Like, that's how long that lasted for. There was nothing else to do. We'd just pound the raid on Heroic. We got so much gear. Like, I don't know. I mean, now there are people for whom, like, Cataclysm was the first time they ever played, and the game was fresh and exciting, and they have those fuzzy feelings for it, and I get that. And everybody's going to have that for different eras of the game, and I'm not trying to hurt your feelings if you love Cataclysm, but I think overall, I don't feel the community being super excited for this.
Right.
Cataclysm seems to be the breaking point where it's like, this is no longer classic WoW. Like, the idea of Cataclysm Classic is strange because
it's where they changed WoW, Classic. Yeah. Yeah.
It means like a certain era of the game to a lot of people. So, I mean, from speaking to people at BlizzCon and stuff, I get why they're doing it. The forecast for retaining players once Wrath of the Lich King is out and completed is not very good based on how vanilla into TBC went and TBC into Wrath went.
Which is too bad, because I would love a classic Pandaria. I would love it. I'd love to get a classic Pandaria. But
yeah, I think you probably will.
Well, we might. And I feel like if Cataclysm Classic is a complete flop and the forecast is that bad and it really does not do well, there is a chance that they go, let's focus more on this hardcore and Season of Discovery thing.
Maybe.
Right?
Yeah.
And
I mean, I do think that sorry to cut you off. I do think that vanilla remixes, like hardcore, like Season of Discovery, I think that is the way forward for Classic, is taking vanilla WoW and just messing with it and seeing what else you could tease out of it. I think that is the way forward versus re-releases. But I also think that maybe Cataclysm is just like a bridge to get to Mists of Pandaria. I don't know.
It might be.
Right? It's
they
like,
might
we got to do
accelerate
it.
Everything just to be like, all right, let's get this thing done in 6 months. Let's go.
Because you got Firelands coming out by autumn when the game is coming out in summer. That's like the halfway point. So, I don't know. Maybe you have Dragon Soul by fall or early
maybe.
winter, and then you're just in the Mists of Pandaria by early 25. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, maybe it's the end of the experiment. Like, I can't imagine the Cataclysm does so poorly that they're like, we're not going to do another round, especially when we have an expansion we think people are going to like better. But then you get into the question of, where does this stop? Are you going to end up just like one expansion behind retail? Like, does that make any sense? I don't know. But I mean, anyway, this is going to for like the mainline Classic server, for the ongoing Classic servers. This is what it's going to be. The back half of the year, it's going to be all about Cataclysm. So
yeah. All right. So we then get Midsummer, Late Summer, Season of Discovery, level 60. So we go up 10 more levels. New runes and end game activities kick in as well. So they don't mention specifically here a raid. They just say endgame activities. This could mean a raid. This could mean that everyone's just starting to do all the, more serious dungeons that are out there. It might mean that people start doing the actual raids that exist already in the game. Maybe you're, going into Molten Core and doing Molten Core or, Blackwing Lair, whatever it is. But that's all they highlight here. So there's no mention of a new raid or a raid twist or something like that. So just keep that in mind. As Jason mentioned.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because, they kind of teased out Karazhan Catacombs at BlizzCon, right? There was that screenshot, and we know there's going to be some kind of level 60 end game content, but they're not going to just have us go into Molten Core at level 60, right? That's
an option. It's an option.
I don't want to do that. That might be the end of it for me, right? I want to do the 10-man raids and do the remix stuff.
It might be a 10-man Molten Core. They might do that.
Okay. I mean, I would be a bit more amenable to that. Yeah. And
I think asking anyone to put together a group of 40 people inside any classic server these days is a challenge.
It always, even at the height it was, and now it's, But hey, you are rolling around with 12 runes potentially by this point in time, right? If we get 3 runes per phase, so that's cool. I do like the idea of new endgame activities coming in, and maybe they're just using it as a sweeping term to mean there will be a new raid. Yep. Dungeons would be cool, or outdoor world stuff, the equivalent of dailies or something would be cool. Just something to go do and maybe get some coin or whatever. Sure. I'd be way into that because I'm at the point in phase 1 now where it's I guess I could go take a lap and just mine and, hang out and maybe do something. It would be cool to have kind of more targeted play a little bit, not some kind of thing where you're grinding up some rep through dailies and now we're in a Mists of Pandaria situation, right? With the daily meta, but just something that so somewhere I can direct my attention, if I feel like playing some SOD by myself. That would be awesome, actually.
Now, you already mentioned that there's going to be Rise of the Firelands happening in fall, but before that, we'll get the Rise of the Zandalari. So that'll be taking place for folks who are keen on that update inside Cataclysm. And then in the late fall, which presumably this would be announced BlizzCon time or anniversary time, Season Discovery is just getting endgame updates. So endgame content updates means that this is where I think if we're going to see a new raid, we'll get a new raid. I wouldn't be surprised if the level 60 stuff was, hey, we're going to make a 10-man version of Molten Core. It's the exact same boss mechanics. It's just you can survive them and kill them with 10 people. It wouldn't surprise me if there was a little bit of a lazy aspect to that kind of content, but they added more outdoor world stuff like you talked about, maybe updated some dungeons to make them cooler, because there's so much content at level 60 for you to actually explore and for you to actually go out and do, that it wouldn't surprise me if they left us in that for a couple of months and then went, all right, here's the endgame updates. We're doing Nax, and it's going to be 10-man Nax, and it's going to be classic Nax. That to me would be, okay, cool. We're doing something that's going to feel really neat for players to sort of work their way through as we sort of see that inside of November anniversary time. So that's the classic roadmap. And I think overall, there's a couple of highlights in there, but everything that stands out for me is actually the weakest color, which is Season of Discovery. Got this toned down gray for all of their updates, this dark navy thing. That doesn't stand out as much as the bright blue for Ruby Sanctum and the bright reds for Cataclysm things. And you're like, man, that's the stuff I'm most excited about when I look at this. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with it.
I don't think you're alone. I mean, I think Season Discovery is really the crown jewel in the classic, area right now.
Yeah.
Hardcore is definitely a cool flavor and definitely had a big moment, but I don't know, man. SOD is just something completely different, and I think there's a big appetite for it, from all different types of WoW players, so that's cool. But if you're looking to check out, retro versions of WoW, there's going to be a lot to do this year. I mean, Classic era is still there. You can still play vanilla as it existed in 2006 anytime you want to, and we'll have, you got a good few months if you're trying to wrap stuff up in Wrath of the Lich King. If you want to re-experience that stuff, you do have probably 6 months here, give or take. And then, obviously SOD is going to be, an ongoing sort of roller coaster ride, and then hardcore updates and the Cataclysm. So, man, it's just an absurd amount of stuff to play on any server you click in the drop down, any client you load up from the drop down. There's just so much stuff to do right now, and it's not slowing down in 2024.
Yeah. Also coming up in 2024, we're going to have the Arena World Championship come back, as well as the Mythic Dungeon International. These are, obviously the big esport aspects for World of Warcraft at the moment. They're going to be celebrating the 20th anniversary during this, so I'm imagining there's going to be a lot of stuff tied to that as well. For the competition, they got about $2 million in prizes, as well as in-game rewards that are specific to it. They also have an increased breadth of competition during the year, so they're going to have, that to me tells me we're going to have more frequent esports competitions happening throughout this year, so their plan is to budget more for that. Registration's currently open for the first event, which is going to be up on Twitch and YouTube. As far as the Arena World Championship goes, we have that first cup kicking off in February, so that's going to be happening in February. That cup is the 2nd and 4th, and then they have Cup 2 on the 9th and 11th. So that's going to be happening early on in the year for folks who are interested in that. Both the mid-season Clash and the AWC Dragonflight Finals will have associated AWC Gauntlet-style events deciding the final spots. Each of the AWC Cups in Season 3 and 4 will have unique in-game banners that participants can earn. And beginning today, teams can go over to sign up on Raider.io for Dragonflight Season 3 Cups. I think it's neat that they're involving Raider.io in this because it's such a staple for a lot of these competitors that doing this is a great way to go about it. And they can also achieve the Dreaming Banner of the Aspects banner. So that's what they're going to be earning. The Mythic Dungeon International is kicking off January 31st to February 5th. This is the time trials that are going to be taking place, with Group A competing on the 16th to 18th of February and Group B on the 23rd to 25th, with the global finals happening on March 8th to 10th. Starting today, you are able to go and start registering for those, as well as we know that the 16 teams are going to be split into 2 different groups with a $30,000 prize pool and 4 qualifying spots for the MDI Global Finals on the line. The MDI Global Finals will be an 8-team bracket with $200,000 prize pool for folks winning that they're pulling money from. So if you want to try and win your time trials, any player who competes in the time trials, you're going to get a Dreaming Banner of the Aspects as well. So if you want to get that prize, you can just compete in the time trials and you'll get one of those. So any team that feels like, hey, you know what, I just want a free banner, just go register with your team, play during that day, doing some, Mythic Plus, seeing what you can do, and you'll get yourself a banner for that. The Great Push is also something that ended in 2023 with incredible competition and returns in Season 4 for the best hits of Dragonflight Dungeons. So again, confirmation that we're going to get a new pool, and that this could be a really cool pool if it's a best hits of Dragonflight Dungeons and its own $260,000 prize pool. So folks who want to do Great Push, it is coming back. And we'll get more information about schedule and whatnot once Season 4 is up and running, or at least announced as to when it's taking place. The War Within, they wanted to highlight this. The Arena World Championship and Mythic Dungeon International will celebrate the launch of the War Within with a combined $800,000 prize pool split for the programs for Season 1 in the new expansion. So expect early esports coming up in War Within as well. Overall, I think this is looking great. I think that the idea of them increasing the amount of esports that you can watch in WoW is always a good thing. Great Push is the thing that interests me personally the most. I think AWC has its place for folks who are really into PvP and WoW. It certainly is something that when I'm active in PvP in the game, I certainly appreciate what's happening inside of the Arena World Championship a lot more. If you're not really involved in the scene, I can understand you being disinterested and not really keen on that. The time trials are cool as well for the Mythic Dungeon International, and actually trying to compete in that particular esport. It just doesn't speak to me as well because I don't like seeing teams just see how well they can execute something they've practiced 1,000 times. That's not as interesting to me as watching the Great Push. The Great Push to me is where it's at for my own personal esport. I like watching folks come up with new and creative and bizarre ways to really try and push the envelope. And when you can say, hey, you know what, you have 4 hours or 8 hours to run as many Mythic Plus dungeons as you want with a keystone generator that lets you play whatever class you want inside of that, thing, you really see some spice come out and people try some crazy things. So I like the Great Push more as an esport to watch. So I'm glad that it's coming back as well.
Yeah, it's my favorite format for sure. So I'm glad that it is on the schedule for this year coming up, and that they mentioned it, even though they don't have final dates for it or whatever at this point. But it's good to see that WoW's still getting some esports money behind it. Esports it's a marketing spend, right? It's not like esports doesn't make its own money. You might have some sponsors and partners and stuff, but it's money that Blizzard is pouring into promoting the game with it is really how that works. So, you've seen a big correction across esports from a lot of different places over the last couple years, and including Blizzard, obviously, with Overwatch League and all that stuff. There's still some life in WoW esports, and it's still worth $2 million to the company to use it to promote WoW. So that's cool to see, and it's cool for the players that can participate and make some money off of it. I mean, obviously, no one is getting a check for $2 million for being the best at World of Warcraft. That's not how this works. Like, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars being split up between all these different events, and then it's split up to all the winning players or whatever. But still, it's a nice big round number to put on top of the program, right? So that's cool to see, and that they continue to support it even after all these years. Also, I think it's telling. I mean, you mentioned it, the part at the end about War Within Season 1 esports and all that. Like, that says to me that we are talking like September here for this. It wouldn't have time to launch the expansion in like November and then run any kind of esports program before the end of the year. So all that stuff is pointing towards a comfortable expansion release before like BlizzCon time, which is really cool. It's awesome if that's the way it works out. I'll be thrilled. And overall, I mean, the calendar seems maybe kind of light here for a whole year, but I guess if they are going to run like a AWC season right at the end of the year, and they're going to run MDI right at the end of the year, then it fills up quite a bit. But there'll be plenty of stuff to check out here in the first 3 months of the year. AWC pretty much runs right into MDI, right? Like AWC season 3 wraps up, and then it sort of overlaps a bit, and then we have kind of like back-to-back finals weekends for they're calling it mid-season clash for AWC, but it's like the season 3 end of AWC, and then a week later is the the MDI season final. So that's kind of cool to have those two big events back-to-back, and then some more. We'll get some more AWC in the springtime, and great push in the springtime, presumably. So, yeah, I mean, the calendar looks pretty good. It's not like I'm not the biggest WoW esports enjoyer anymore. I used to watch more of it, I feel like, but I respect the fact that they keep it going and that the company still devotes resources to it. I do like the great push format, so I will check that out. And it's not like I guess what you're really looking for here as a WoW player is like any kind of sky is falling type of red flags, like, oh, we're yanking WoW esports this year, or oh, we're doing a grand total of $250K in prizes across all the events or something. Like, that's not happening. Obviously the company feels like this is a good way to promote the game, and that they're getting some kind of value on that esports investment. So that's awesome for everybody involved. They got to pay production people and casters and stuff for it too. So, it's not just like the total spend on their part isn't $2 million. It's a bit more than that. And I don't know. It's good news even if you're not into it, because it means that it means that they feel like it's a good thing to spend money on. So that's good for WoW. Yeah,
it's healthy for WoW for sure. All right, before we wrap up, there's one update I have to highlight that's coming in Seeds of Renewal. One thing that's incredibly important for everyone. Everyone is going to rejoice. This is the update coming in Seasons of Renewal. All toasts can now immediately be dismissed with a right click. This includes toasts that appear near the top center of the screen, such as the Great Vault unlocks. You can now get rid of the box that pops up on your screen by right-clicking on it, as opposed to wanting it to go away and being really careful not to mouse over it, because it makes it stay longer and it's really irritating. So you have to just try and ignore it for as long as you can. You can now right click, make the toasts go away once you've read what they are. I love this.
Super nice.
Oh my God.
Super nice.
Yeah.
I thought that you were going to dive right in on the snapping updates.
Snapping thing's cool.
The frame snapping.
I like the frame snapping.
Updates there. Yeah. I mean, overall, it was a pretty light week for PTR notes. But, it is cool to see that they're still, messing with UI updates and improving that stuff and improving edit mode. These were things that we said that we wanted, a year and a half ago or whatever when we were in beta. Like, man, this is cool, but it's not quite there yet. Hopefully they keep working on it. And really, like, all that stuff that we said, they kind of did throughout the last year or so.
They're getting love to see it. You can't say that. You can't say that, Jason. You can't. I have talked many times on this show about the tragedy that is the chat experience inside World of Warcraft.
Well, yeah.
They need to update the chat. I approached Ian while I was at BlizzCon inside of the Marriott lobby and said, Ian, one thing, just one thing. I know it's not your department, but just one thing. He said he'd bring it up at a meeting that he was going to be having, so that was good. And that's allow me to have a chat window that expands while I'm typing a message so I can see my whole message, as opposed to typing into a dragging off the screen line that you have to use your arrow keys to scroll back through to see what you type to make sure everything reads okay. And if you have to edit anything, you then have to scroll back and forth a whole bunch to figure out, as opposed to just having a modern chat experience, which exists in many games and phones and apps everywhere. So please update the chat experience inside World of Warcraft.
Listen to me. The day that they do that, the game is going to break so hard.
It'd be the worst spaghetti code thing ever.
We're never going to be able to log into it again, and we're all going to know who to blame. That chat window is like, it's holding on for dear life.
It's the fundamentals of World of Warcraft. Without the chat window in its current state.
It's the keystone. You pull that out, and the whole thing just collapses. So it's that and the backpack. Those are the two things that the whole game is built on. So,
oh, man.
No, you're right. That doesn't need an update, but they never said they were updating it. So, with edit mode, they said they were going to continue to improve it, and they're paying that off, man. Yep. So, I honestly haven't used edit mode in like a year. I kind of just set it up, and I should mess with it more and try to improve it, but that's just not how I work. It's a very powerful tool. You can do a lot of cool stuff with it, but I don't feel like I use it to its potential, but also I think about starting to do that, and then I just get tired.
Well, I mean, you'll probably do it with an expansion launch because your UI will break. That's probably the best time to do it, to be honest.
Yeah, well, also I'll have to incorporate all my new hero talents.
Exactly.
Hopefully that won't need a lot of UI support, but you never know.
Yeah, you never know. All right. With that, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today, I want to give a special shout out to Alianas, Arajian, James, Kapawi, Max, Shorel, Vespin, and Rager, with a W at the start. Thank you so much for everything that you all give towards the show, as well as all of our other patrons, including our newest ones, Silka and Ryan S. Thank you so much for hopping in and supporting the show. You can find our Patreon over at patreon.com/thestartingzone if you want to hop in and support the show as well. Man, it means a lot to all of our patrons. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been a wonderful year for the show. And I'm so glad we got back to BlizzCon. I'm so glad we got to share some content with you from that and participate in that. And man, it has been good. It has been a really, really good year. So thank you so much. And I'm hoping that next year we continue to grow and find more patrons and support the show more. There's this dream that I have someday of just full-time content creation, making stuff for you guys in World of Warcraft a lot. And maybe someday that'll happen. So thank you so much for everything you give. We appreciate all of you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, patrons, and welcome new patrons. Great to have you aboard. And it does mean a lot, especially like looking ahead to next year and lining up bills and stuff. Yep. And, is a podcast the most expensive thing in the world to produce? No, but we do have concerns. There are bills that we need to pay. And, our archives are massive and there is demand to keep them online, and we do have to host all that stuff. So the support really helps us keep the show alive, keep the history of the show alive, which I think is really important to both of us. And we're moving into 15 years of TSZ next year, if you can wrap your brain around that. So, having basically 15 years of archives as complete as we can get them online for people when they want them is amazing, and patrons help make that happen. So thank you all for your support, and thank you for chipping in here at the end of the year as we start looking ahead. So thank you all.
Yeah. And if you folks have enjoyed this episode of The Starting Zone, consider heading on over to your iTunes or Apple Podcasts and leave us those 5-star reviews. They really help out our show, and we love reading them here live on the show. This one comes in from Monkey from Valhalla on Kazgarath, saying, I've been listening to your podcast since early Castle Nathria. I just happened to find you guys amongst all the other podcasts, and I couldn't be happier. Always such well-informed and formulated shows. Look forward to hearing from you guys each week with a new weekly update. Always helps work chug along that little bit quicker. Keep doing what you're doing. Looking forward to hearing from you next week, Monkey from Valhalla on Kazgarath. I'm so glad we can help you out with your work week. I am very happy that you found us. And man, Castle Nathria, that was an experience back then, man.
Yeah, it was.
Man, I loved that raid tier until we hit generals, and then it just became like a nightmare. So yeah, that was an experience. Man, that was also like the height of my mythic rating. We were pulling in huge. Well, actually, it wasn't the height. The end of BFA was the height of my mythic rating. It was still a lot of fun. We still did really well inside Castle Nathria and through there. Man, oh man, it's a good raid tier. So I'm glad you found us and have been listening so long, and thank you so much. It feels like forever ago. So yeah, thank you to everyone who supports the show, and we appreciate your reviews and boosting us up the charts and helping more people find the show.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for taking the time to write in. We appreciate it a lot. And yeah, Nathria was already 3 years ago somehow.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
But yes, Monkey, thank you so much for taking the time to say hi. This is an Australian review, so we always love hearing from our international audience. It's always fun. I would also like to point out, if we haven't read your review, we actually got like inundated with new reviews lately, which I cannot thank you all enough for. It's amazing. We will read them all on the air one at a time. Also, the website that I go to that aggregates all the reviews had some hiccup, and it's the easiest way to see them from different countries, because otherwise I have to log into multiple different iTunes stores or something, and I don't want to do that. But we love the international reviews, but we are a little behind on the reviews, but we've also gotten a ton of them in the last couple weeks, so we will catch up on them, I promise, and keep them coming if you want us to read your review on the air. But thank you so much, Monkey, for taking the time and for sticking with us for all these years. We appreciate you, and glad you're enjoying the game.
Yeah. That's going to wrap up episode 610 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com or reach out to us on Twitter at thestartingzone, or join our Discord server and the conversations happening over there by going to thestartingzone.com/discord. And that'll get you into our Discord server. If you want to get your hands on some TSE gear, you can find that over at TeePublic. That's teepublic.com/stores/thestartingzone. You can check out all the designs on shirts and mugs and stickers and all that kind of fun stuff. And Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
The best place to find me is always over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald. You can also find me on Blue Sky. I don't really post over there, but I do read it a bit. So, once it's time to actually move over there, which might be someday, you find me over there.
Yeah.
It's not Shieldwald, though. You have to look me up. You'll find me if you look hard enough. You can also find me streaming WoW over on twitch.tv/Shieldwald, usually Tuesday, Wednesday, and Sunday nights at 7:30 Eastern. Stream's been all over the place. Last 2 stream nights have been absolutely fine. No issues with ISP at all. Last week was all over the place. So I don't know what to expect. I fire it up and I go wherever it takes me. Might be streaming tonight some BFD at 9 p.m., which is a little unusual, but that'll be fun. So come say hi over on the Twitch channel. I just hit 1,900 followers. So the channel's been around a long time. My stream's not that big of a deal, but it is fun, and I appreciate everybody who stopped by over the years. 1,900 is a cool milestone. And you can find me also over on youtube.com/Shieldwall. That channel's been a bit dormant, but it does exist.
All right. If you're trying to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey, or over on the Blue Sky, same thing. And I'm also on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD. And I have a YouTube channel at youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And with that, for Jason and myself, I want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.